and stands by it during the firing of the fireworks.
Okay. Any other questions? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Okay, motion second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. Next item on the agenda is review of new fire code. So let us have it. What are we talking about?
I promise I'll keep it less than 4 hours tonight.
Okay.
Basically, in front of you, I handed out a couple sheets, basically to give you a little bit of a background on what I'm trying to do here. If you look at the first bullet on that one, sorry, Carl, I didn't give you one here. So.
I don't know how to run things.
No, that's just no paper thing. I know how to run paper thing. All right. So the first bullet you see there is the International Fire Building Code is a published set of codes that meets the needs of government units charged with enforcement of building regulations. And that looks like something like this. There's several different chapters within it. This is what we work through right now. This is what we use. The one I have in front of you is the 2012 edition. The city has adopted the 2003 edition of the International Building Code. The fire code is very similar to that. It works in cohesiveness with the building code, and that is for fire prevention and fire protection. Both codes are updated every 3 years, and right now we are in the 2012. The 2015 has just come out, but we're not looking at adopting that. The problem we have is that the International Building Code was adopted for the 2003 edition. For some reason, the fire code was never adopted or amended, and currently we are using the 1997 with some 1984 code years things.
Yeah, what's happened is, we used to have uniform building code, uniform fire code, and they were coordinated and correlated. And everything has, over the past 10 years, there's somewhere in there, switched to what's called the International Building Code that the city now uses. And, I don't know what electrical codes apply, but I think there's correlated mechanical codes, electrical codes, and whatnot that correlate with, that. And one of the codes is the International Fire Code.
Correct. So, yep. So some of the things like Carl was talking about, there's the International Building Code, International Residential Code, International Fire Code, Plumbing Code, Electrical Code. There's code for just about anything you can imagine. So what I'm looking for approval tonight is the approval of the 2012 International Fire Code. If you look at page 2 of the handout I gave you, that's a cut and pasted Word product that shows the top one is the 2003 International Building Code in our codified laws that has been adopted. And if you look at the second one, that's the 1997 adopted International Fire Code or Uniform Fire Code. Part of the problem is that if somebody really wanted to push it, we could be quite a gray area on using a 2003 fire code that technically hasn't been adopted by the city. I do use that, and it has been common practice, but by any sense of the law, if we don't have that adopted or amended, we could be held liable if somebody wanted to push that. I have not had that issue, but that is something that we need to look at. The state of South Dakota follows the 2009 model code set. South Dakota allows any local government to set whatever code or amend whatever they want to do. That's why I'm asking you to do the 2012 tonight. You might be asking what cities have adopted this one. Sioux Falls and Watertown is currently using the 2012 code set. They've been doing that for several months now. Rapid City is actually looking at skipping the 2012 and amending the 2015. And that leaves Aberdeen as the last Class A city, and they're still using the 2003, and we're not sure what they're thinking about doing. I called up there the other day and kind of got a him and hawing around on what they were going to do. But the other cities have already updated their code set. As you can see on that one of those other bullets, I said the last amended code set for the Mitchell Fire Department was in 1984. So if you look at that second page, there's stuff that's referred to in 84 and 97. It's just old and outdated. There's many different things that the code, so look at, there's different chapters, everything from sprinkling a building to fire separation, anything that you can imagine, hazardous materials, and so forth. I am requesting that the city council approve this ordinance in its entirety, except for amending section 903.2.8. And Carl will go into these a little bit more here in a little bit. And then some permitting things and omitting Appendix J. And then also there's one that's the placement of the fire marshal and how he ranks in the overall scheme of things in the Department of Public Safety. In the code book, it states that the fire marshal technically would be over the chief and so forth, and we're going to amend that to make sure that I fall underneath of that. So,
Can I
go ahead.
interrupt? I have several questions.
You bet.
The first is just practicality. It's updated every 3 years. So I guess my first question is, why wouldn't we either do the 2009 version that is in compliance with the state, and if somebody was going to come in and do a construction job, I'm thinking of all this construction going on, and I'd be just sick if I got done and all of a sudden, you know, there was a change. Or why don't we do 2015? What's the rationale for picking 2012? I mean, I'm not against updating. I'm just wondering what the logic is there.
Right. The idea was to get it all on a common plane, because right now, Councilman, I'm getting things designed around 2003, 2009, and now Pitts Corporation with the new DWU building is starting to design around 2012. So we're just trying to find a common ground. John Haig, the building inspector, will be following me and asking to update his building code to 2012 also. We can jump to the 2015. When I started this process, 2012 was the only edition that was out, and we spent close to $1,500 on this set of code books, and that's why we just decided to go with this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
That-
gonna say this has been on my radar for quite a while.
That,
And I don't know how much time I'll spend or how much time we have tonight, but it's overwhelming to me.
well, I was interested in, I used to be on committees in the legislature where we went through this periodically, where they would, you know, update the code. It seemed like we were doing that all the time. So that explains that, and I obviously accept that reasoning. My next question, I'm not sure you can answer, but obviously we've had apartments that just went up, and so they're copacetic. But there are apartments going up right now. What happens to them when we change in the middle of their construction? Are they bound by the new code, and now they have to, I'm making this up, have to put in twice as many sprinklers, or because they were approved at an earlier date, they're under that code? How does that work?
That's exactly right. And can I answer just one more thing about that? There are communities and cities out there that every time a code update is done, they automatically just move forward to that new code set. So for instance, if we are already in the 2012 and the 2015 was out there, they have it in their city ordinances that state that they would just update. We don't do that in Mitchell. We just do it as things progress and start to change, just to answer a little bit of that. In regards to apartments and so forth, I hate to use the word grandfathering, but whatever is being built or currently built does not retro effect back to that date. So for instance, if this goes through in the second reading at the end of July and August 1st is that date, that's when this goes into effect, and that's when these new rules would cover those buildings.
Yeah, I think we have to provide that. I think the code by its terms applies to prior existing buildings to some certain minimum standards.
So how many buildings would that affect in the city of Mitchell?
For new business, or for new buildings? For old? None. Unless you would put something out there that would make us, sprinkle all those old buildings, and that would be,
By its terms,
yeah.
to do that, you have to, if you're gonna grandfather in, you have to do that.
Just-
But if you remodel,
Right. and that's what we're running.
Change the wiring, you do anything like that, you've got to be up to the latest code.
Right, and that's what we're running into with the Corn Palace. So, one other thing with the apartment building thing, and I'm not sure which amendment or what Carl handed out there, but in,
Just the state statute.
yep, there was a state law that was passed in 2011 that we were not aware of as fire marshals in most of the cities in South Dakota, that states an automatic sprinkler system shall be put into any new hotel, motel, or multifamily residence, including 6 or more families. So that's quite a change. So for instance, the new townhouses out on East First, the Copperleaf, those are all sprinkled. There's more than 6. So they did follow that state law that was passed. And I would like to add this to the amendment and add that to our codified laws since it is state law, if that's something we need to do. So.
I have one last question, I'm sure you can
Yep.
answer it. What difference does this make to insurance premiums? You know, is it going to reduce insurance premiums since you're up to date? Or will it now increase insurance premiums because my old building didn't have the sprinklers and now the new requirements say I should have them?
To speak generally for insurance, I've always been told that there is an insurance break for sprinkling your house or your home, or your house or your business. What that amount is, I don't know right off the top of my head. One of the sections that we are going to strike because it's against state law is the sprinkling of your home or personal residence is in this code, but the state law does not allow that, so we'll be amending that out of this one. But there is a price break for that, I believe, in the insurance business.
Okay. I guess a question I have, and moving forward, since this is just in a committee and it is not in the formal agenda, the council won't vote on this tonight, the committee will. But I think the committee can recommend that it be on the next council agenda, but we can't approve this as a council tonight because it's not on the agenda.
You're right, Councilman. My
So-
goal here was just to bring it forward to you and
Okay.
tell you basically what I'm looking at doing, and then your approval onto council for first and second reading in July.
Okay.
Along with that, I would like to put in some verbiage, so to speak, in the codified laws. The code book, the fire code, this book tells you what you need to do, okay? So if I'm building a building, a house, or whatever it is, and I look in this book, it tells me what I need to do. However, in that book, it also refers to codes and standards that are put out by the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, okay? That codes and standards tells you how to do it, all right? So I have this book that tells me what to do, and then people have to refer to that codes and standards on how to do it, all right? I would like to put some verbiage into the codified laws that state that the city of Mitchell will follow whatever that current year of NFPA is for that year, is what I would like, so. And Carl and I have talked about that before, so.
Yeah, you're still gonna have an NFPA, right?
Correct. And that's life safety code and a bunch of other things, and it's I don't even know the number of standards, but a lot.
So you're saying you want to put in verbiage that if the 2018, in a couple years, the 2018 comes
Right.
up, we just adopt 2018 as part of it?
For the NFPA.
For
So
the
for instance,
NFPA.
right, so if it's obviously 2014, so we would be following the 2014 NFPA codes and standards, even though we're in the 2012 code book. It makes sense once it's all laid out, but it's just a different set of codes and standards, so that works together with this fire
That's for
code.
residential?
It's for everything.
Is there any, give me an example, what kind of big changes are for new residential construction?
I don't know that one, to answer you. I don't deal with the residential part. John does, and he can speak better to that. My area is pretty much all business. So, and pretty much the changes there are sprinkling, different sized buildings. Some of the square footage is going down, and also the number of people that are allowed in buildings is going down also. They're getting a lot more stringent on that. I'm trying to think what else.
What about number of exits or that kind of thing?
No, that's pretty much staying the same. Exit width is changing. One of the big things that they're adding, and it doesn't really apply to Mitchell per se, but a new thing called Wildland Urban Interface. So Rapid City, everything out west where the woods come right up to the towns and so forth. There's a whole set of new codes for that on keeping your lawn clear, and that's a whole book about that thick on what you're supposed to do so your house doesn't burn down, hopefully. So some of the other things, one of the things, Councilman, I forgot, carbon monoxide detectors in all homes now, not only smoke detectors, but now carbon monoxide detectors hardwired in. Let's see, what else do I have on the list? Different things like that.
Well, this is so comprehensive, so incredibly comprehensive, that it overwhelms me. And I don't know where we start enforcing, where do we start enforcing the kinds of detailed comprehensiveness with this fire code in the city of Mitchell?
Can you give us an example of what you're saying that is
Well, you can't
so,
have a charcoal grill on a wooden deck if you're tanking more than 9.
oh wow. How
And
many
everybody
do
in
you know?
town has one. No, that's just an example out of the air.
Yeah,
It's so comprehensive. And are we gonna start inspecting rental units, residential rental, and if so, at what level? You know, what we do about older buildings, inspections of older buildings?
Before we get too deep into that, the inspection of rentals is not included within this, and that would have to be something that the city council would have to talk over in certain areas of that. Pretty much all my inspection area deals with businesses, and we currently go through all old buildings and Main Street at least once a year, so.
That's what you do, that's not what the code says, unless I'm misreading it. And I think that in our buildings downtown, you're inspecting the occupied areas, and we've discussed that, where do we, if you're just looking at the occupied areas, what is in the unoccupied areas? You know, where's the fire happen? How do we deal with some of these are sticky wickets, and, you know, we don't know if the power is cut off and upstairs of these old buildings downtown. You know, is there power on, are there lights up there? There probably are, but, you know, is it knob and tube? Is it hot? I don't know, we don't know that. You know, there's a lot of really good things in there, but there's a lot of things that are so penetrating.
so what do you recommend, Carl? Are you saying you
Well,
don't have?
I don't know, but I would like to give this book to anybody who wants to look at it over the course of the next 2 weeks.
I was just thinking how happy I was it wasn't required reading for tonight's meeting.
Yes, you are.
And there's a lot of things that are, I mean, storing varnish for more than 30 days. If it's found. You know?
Carl's-
The point of law that I want to point out, that I did come upon in researching this, and that is that no body or person other than the city can invoke enforcement of its ordinances. But that becomes a sticky wicket too. If we have ordinances and say, well, you know, why aren't you enforcing the ordinances? I don't know, it is, there's so much in here that seems to be covered by OSHA, you know, like the paint.
No,
the-
this is a general guideline to allow buildings and different businesses on what they're allowed to do. OSHA doesn't really have anything to do with this per se, and is very little, if at all, referenced in this book. Just so you're aware, I did present this to Attorney Cook a while ago, and at that point in time, we've gone through everything, and he agreed to what we were talking about, and now tonight he seems to have some apprehension. So What you didn't have.
Do we just break it down and possibly, we can't do it all in one evening and
So
we do a section?
what would you like to see us do?
I would like to see you give your approval to move forward for first and second reading in July for this. If there are areas that we need to go through, we can and amend those out. My idea was to go through and get this, other than the certain things I've already mentioned, to annex out. And then if there's any other things further down the road that Attorney Cook feels that need to be come out, we can amend those at a later date.
That would be my original intention to do that. I think that might be the only way to proceed. I don't know how
I'm
going to.
into my third year, going into my fourth year now as fire marshal, and I've rarely, if ever, come up with an issue with flammable finishes or anything along that line that would preclude this from not being accepted. We've always been able to work through things, and our inspection program has been working great for the city of Mitchell, and so.
I don't know, I don't necessarily know a better solution than what Marius, the fire marshal, suggests.
Well, we got to do something. I mean, it can't be
You know,
1984.
I want you to be aware of the depth of penetration of this, something different than, to my knowledge. Maybe if I read the old fire code, I'd be overwhelmed by that too, I don't know.
The 2003 that is not amended or adopted, I should say, has all these same things in it. There's nothing different in the 2003 as opposed to the 2012, just some verbiage that has changed and things like that. But for the most part, it's the same thing.
So I just have to, might share a personal perspective. When I was a school teacher, my main association with the fire marshal was the rules in our classrooms, you know, whatever. And some of us followed those rules and some of us didn't. And I'm not going to say which category I was in all the time, but it was always like, well, if the fire marshal comes, we got to take those tubs off at the top of the casement work or whatever, as an example. But, so I think that you can say that there are things, Carl, in any codified law that may or may not be followed all the time. I mean, but the directive is out there, and it's, you know, this is what we want to have happen, but you don't not have the rule because someone might not follow the rule, or because it's so extensive that we don't know how to, I mean, you have to have a benchmark, and so,
I don't know that I don't know.
I guess I would support whatever it is that you think that we need to do.
Right.
That would be, I would make that motion that we recommend to the council what
And we put it on
the fire marshal, on first reading, what the fire marshal would like to have.
And I would encourage, I think
Second.
you should have some idea of what it is that you're adopting when you're adopting a code. You know, you hear criticism of Congress, maybe justify what it says, they get a 1,000-page bill and they never read it and then they vote on it, and, you know, this is something a little.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend the fire code, and I'll wait, I guess, until we have the exact wording that is brought forward for that to the city council. Because I'll screw it up saying that you're going to try and do the 2012
Sounds great.
code, whatever it is.
Perfect.
I'll bring it to the July meeting for first reading, and then if it proceeds, we'll go to second reading.
Yep.
The discussions of what to include as amended in, amended out. If we want to continue the discussion of what we think is enforceable or items that we might want to inspect, we can continue that discussion, but I think we have that motion and second to bring that to the July meeting.
I just have one other question. What would this do to the Corn Palace construction going on right now?
Nothing, other than that, what's been brought forward already.
What about sprinkling?
The building will be sprinkled. Not only phase one will be resprinkled. The Corn Palace is currently fully sprinkled. With the update that they are doing and vaulting the ceilings and changing those things, it will be sprinkled again. However, the layout of those those sprinkler heads will be different, and that's not changed by the code. And then also when Phase 2 starts, this building will be sprinkled at that point also. So,
Any other? Yes.
How does this compare to what Aberdeen or Watertown?
same thing.
So you're not reinventing the wheel.
No,
It's
not even
rocket
close.
science. It's just
And
a matter of getting-
exactly.
getting the books.
Yep, and I know this code inside and out, just about page for page. And exactly, so if somebody would like to sit down and go
Okay.
through it over lunch, I would be glad to do that. But it's no different than any other city. Some, like Carl has said, some cities have amended certain things out. I just am looking to amend a few, and then if there's some that are down the road that just either don't work for the city of Mitchell, we can amend those out also.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we adjourn.
Okay, call the Traffic Commission meeting to order. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any additions or corrections? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. First item, request for a parade permit for the second annual Neil Epp Memorial Poker Run. The event is on Saturday, June 28th, with a 10 a.m. start. The parade will begin in front of Rita's Restaurant on North Sanborn, and it would travel to 23rd Avenue and go west. And the clarification route has been from North Sanborn to the bypass over to Minnesota Street and then west on 23rd. And we don't have a problem with that. We will have to verify with DOT also on this. Is there anybody here that would like to address this? This is a state highway, but I don't think there should be a problem on that shortest one.
So where did it go last year? This is the second annual.
I think it was the same. Where did they go south? They may be on Main. I don't recall what it was.
I thought they started at the depot last.
Yeah, I think you're right.
They're switching locations.
Yep. Yep.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Next, Corn Palace Stampede Rodeo Committee requests a parade permit for the rodeo parade scheduled for Saturday, July 19th, beginning at 10:30 a.m. In preparation for the parade, the Corn Palace Stampede Rodeo Committee requests that beginning at 4:30 a.m., no cars be allowed to park on either side of the street along the parade route, as well as on the area on Main Street that is used to line up the parade entrance. This would encompass the following streets. Main Street from 12th Avenue south to 7th, 7th Avenue west to Raleigh, Raleigh Street south to 6th Avenue, 6th Avenue east to Main Street south to 1st Avenue, 1st Avenue east to Lawler, and Lawler Street north to 7th. We also have a request that an alternative route be set up, that they don't have to go around 6th, that they would be able to go right in front of the Corn Palace. It appears they've talked with Mueller Construction, and they will make a path for it, if everything works out. So if we don't have to go around 6th, we don't have to. I talked to Stan Peterson today, and he said he has clarified that's a very real possibility. So it's just that we'd have to have security to keep people from out.
Would we,
inside
yeah,
the
would
fence.
we end up, the parade goes through there, but there's no.
No people would be
no
allowed
people
in.
in there?
Yep. So as an alternative route, we just go straight down
Yeah.
on Main. So I'd like you, if we're going to approve them,
How do you-
approve
how do you
both
keep
these.
them from the mall across the street? and that
Yeah.
type of stuff, but
Yep.
I don't-
Well, it's kind of fenced there, I believe, but we'll have to come up with something to
Yeah.
keep them out of there. So on approval, I would ask for approval for both routes as a contingency.
So you'll determine which is the safest alternative?
If we, our first choice is to go right through past Corn Palace here on 7th. and we'll work with Mullers on that.
And if it's feasible, you'll do that. If not,
If not, we go around.
go around.
Yep, if for some reason they're just big equipment or it's not safe or something like that, then we go around on Sixth Street. But we do have to have it clarified because we cannot have parking on Raleigh, on Sixth, anything like that, because we're gonna have long vehicles making those turns.
But that will be your decision.
That'd be our decision, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. As for right now, we're gonna plan on going past the Corn Palace, but we would announce it prior to this, but we just want to have the authority to do that.
Okay, I will move approval of the Corn Palace Stampede Rodeo Parade request with both possible routes, straight on Main or the 7th to Raleigh to 6th and back to Main.
Okay,
Second.
second by Dan. Any other discussion on this? Anybody in the audience have any input? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion's carried. Next, the Outcast Car Club requests a parade permit beginning in the 1800 block of North Main to 9th and Main, at which time they would join in with the DW parade. This request would begin at 10 a.m. and go into the completion of the joint parade that will be held on September 20th, 2014. Also requesting street closures for the Outcast Car Show at the completion of the parade to include no parking and Main Street closures from First Avenue to 6th Avenue and to include a half block either side, with First Avenue and Fifth Avenue to remain open for through traffic. These street closures would begin, or correction, requested until 4 p.m. At 4 p.m., the 500 block of North Main would remain closed to include a half block either side of 6th Avenue until 12 a.m. until the completion of the dance in the Corn Palace. Now, we do have somebody here, but they also have authority from Mullers to possibly go through Main Street also for that parade. So what I would like to do is have that same route, have two alternate, both routes approved for this also.
I went out there today and talked to the project
State your
manager,
name.
Dave Linke with Outcast. I went out there this afternoon after talking to Lyndon, and as far as I know, it's a go for all of us, both of them. As far as they're concerned, he had already told someone, in the city hall that it was a go for both parades. At first he went, no, I've already got two, and I said, no, but I'm half of the second one. So he said, oh, okay. But as far as they're concerned, it's a go. They'll open the gates, and that's what he told me. They'll open the gates, and it's a 17-foot wide, as far as I know, in between the gates. So if there's any, on Stampede, if there's anything wider than that, that's not going to fit. So, that's something you'll have to check on there as far as that. But ours and Dakota Westlands won't be a problem because ours is cars and they're, they're 6 foot wide. So.
Now, we're only going down to First Street, and just a little bit ago you mentioned to me that you would request to go down to Railroad.
Yeah, we're losing the block in front of the Corn Palace for the cars. And all indications, we might be a little bit larger this year than we have in other years where we had 175. It might hit 2.5 this year if it all goes the way it's looking so far. And what we do down there from First to Railroad would be the club cars parked there. So we're out of the way for the ones coming in. And ours would be parked way ahead of time. I mean, they'd be down there. Well,
So
they
for the
couldn't
street
be.
closure and the car
They
show,
couldn't be though, could
you
they?
want to go from Railroad to 6th?
Yeah. With First and Fifth and 7th, of course, it'd be open.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the question I have there. With that one, their parade ends at First, Dakota Westlands. Is that where theirs ends?
Right.
So it would be all right if that was blocked off, there for the cars ahead of time for the club members. Because we all got to get them down there because we're working, we're working
It's
the show.
okay if they approve it,
Yeah, okay. Right.
if the Traffic Commission and Council approves
All
it.
right, thank you.
I'm not on the committee, but how would the depot feel about not having access to their building the whole day?
They still
still
have,
get
they
in
still
from
have
side
railroad.
streets.
They still have First Street, they come on Railroad. It'll block off Main Street, right, Railroad won't be closed.
Okay.
We've talked to him.
You would leave Railroad open?
Yeah.
Just go up to the north side of Railroad?
Yeah,
Okay.
It'd just be on Main Street itself.
Okay.
I've already talked to John, and everything, and he said, not a problem. He's done it, it's been blocked off last year, the other years anyway. You know, it's never been officially, but it's always got blocked off somehow. I don't know why or how, but I know it's been blocked off other years. And he hasn't got a problem. We funnel our poker run to his establishment, so, you know, afterwards, so he gets pretty full on Saturday night with him, so. We treat him good, because he treats us good.
Other questions?
I'll move to approve both options.
Okay, both options for the parade and then blocking off the street from Railroad all the way to Sixth?
Correct.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Dave. Any other comments, input? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We'll be adjourned. Yeah, I know.
You know, I don't really know where they.
Well, because, you know, in the past, it was down the opposite end, right?
Used to.
Is this where it's been the last few years?
Marty, they pulled the fireworks off last year at the same spot.
What's that?
They have the fireworks on the same spot last year.
The one, the new one here in the book? Did they move it back?
We got a dot there where it's.
Well, to me, that, I wasn't here, so I wasn't a question that. Is that where they?
So how many years has it been? Right here.
Yeah, but is that where they shot it off in?
Yeah.
They always shot it off over here. I didn't go down to it. I always thought it was around on that little parking lot area.
It's the West End Bridge, right?
Yeah, that's the
Put it
island.
up, you mean where the boat dock is?
No, there's a.
West End Bridge.
Bailey Drive.
Oh, yeah.
There's that little horseshoe.
See what they're doing and pass it along.
This would make it harder to see. Well. From the east side.
You sure they weren't?
This is where that used to be.
What does it mean, no back to the original fire area?
Big area right here. I always thought it was on that little.
Yeah.
It'll be a short meeting tonight.
See, I proposed a couple years ago to rotate one here, one back, one there. To rotate around.
That Ms.
I knew they did it for several years. Once they moved the island, this year it went 20 years.
for the participant.
So you're shooting over land. This is where the boat is. Because you don't want to try to snap.
That's great. I mean, Wolfman, that's kind of strong.
Yeah, obviously, he's preoccupied.
This guy is, his name is Jerry Bruce, and he's been at our show, and he sounds exactly like, if you turn the other way, you wouldn't know the difference.
Really?
But he's been at all our shows, so.
But if they moved over there last year,
He helps with music and all that stuff.
Looks great.
No, I'll tell you, we were up to Brookings, Sunday and Saturday to that one, and then everywhere I go, my wife and I spend our weekends, every weekend, all summer long. And we don't stay home many weekends. And everybody talks about this one more than any other one. on.
Really?
They're still amazed that the city will let us do it right on Main Street.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, that's one of the biggest. Watertown does it, and that's the only two. The rest of them are kind of shy away from it, but, you know, and people like it down here. They've got the stores to go to, there's something to do, so. It's
Sounds
a
great.
win-win for the whole.
I need to make my way down.
I'm doing quite well. I wasn't sure. I had a department head meeting this morning. And I went over there. Dude, problem. But my hearing shorted out. I couldn't hear it. My hearing went out this morning. I turned out to my hearing guy. So I got back and they're working on it. So nothing serious. I did not. That's fine. You know, I read that. It'll take a year for that. Yeah. Yeah, I'll get your original. Okay. Huh? Is it your book? Sorry.
Look at the city. I'd be lost, but you know what? I could wing it. I think I could wing it. I've done this enough. I could wing it.
Bobby, he's on it.
Boy, it's stormy, isn't it? I thought we were well, apparently there's another one storming over in there. Yeah, yeah. It was. As long as it's, as long as it's out there.
When people get the contract.
Oh, no, I didn't even have my phone.
I thought, oh, he's either out running or he's.
I was out running.
Well, no, this is, that's testing.
Seriously.
You were really
What?
yeah.
Did you see that picture that Brian State took? Okay. I'm asking you,
I hope so.
It is the most incredible.
After the last
Yeah.
one, I was so dead the next day. I mean, I get home and I can never go right to sleep for these things anyway. I gotta wind down for a while.
Wow. Well, this picture is quite.
Soccer?
So, oh, you have They
Yeah.
would fix them.
Okay, my grandchildren
They
have the same
dried
as
them
mine.
out.
Just so you know.
Kidding
So
me?
those little fingerprints, they don't
Cleaned
get
it.
washed because.
Actually, they work better than before, because
They were probably dirty.
they were. That's what he said.
Well, that might have been what saved them too.
Right?
If they were
So out-
filled
I'm
with
sure it's
wax,
out,
that's
just looking from
probably
this house,
absorbed the-
west.
kept the
Isn't
water
that-
out.
I don't want to United
Wow.
States.
You can't hardly.
Postcard.
I know, it's
You were very lucky.
It's not real.
Well,
Like, somebody that looks like it's
Lois and my
Yeah.
daughter were
Must be
talking,
over.
and they said,
No, it's very expensive.
they cost like
Oh,
600.
yeah.
There's a fine line between.
I got these years ago, they were $7.
They were suggesting that if it was going to be a really expensive fix, that maybe I check into my homeowner's insurance. and see whether- Well, I don't have to do that.
I had a real good one. My grandson, I went out to Akron to teach him, and he had dirty little fingers.
Soccer's a dangerous sport.
But
Rejecting.
there are times when I think.
So after they got wet, did you take the batteries out right away and open them up?
Yep, and put new batteries in.
No.
Okay, that's a little bit.
Inadvertently, stepped under the shower when I got
So,
it.
oh, this is the other fatality.
But nothing like what I got.
Not the trench you had then.
Station is that where the other one?
Well, I've often thought too, if I'm walking, it just starts pouring. I mean, yeah, but you can't hardly hold them in your hands because they're still gonna get water in there. I don't know what you do, pocket won't work. So, carry a baggie.
Yeah.
Lightning hits Mitchell Water Tower and then
Yeah, that picture. That's incredible.
wow. Jill took that, huh?
Now that should have remained paper with photos.
Wow.
What are the odds?
Isn't that incredible?
You should buy a lottery ticket today.
And it's just center of the water.
Oh, is that a
So I
lightning
suppose
picture?
you just try to get a picture
Of the lightning, yeah.
Have you seen that? Ken?
And isn't that amazing? I mean,
What's that?
it's
The lightning picture?
Yeah, Terry showed it
I
to
see
me.
where it started and ended, but that is.
Took it.
Some citizen. I didn't recognize it. I heard it on the radio too.
Yeah. Heard it on the radio too. They didn't say a name then when I heard it.
Yeah, they identified the person who took it.
You're the only guy I know who hangs his clothes on to dry it before he puts it in.
I do.
Yeah.
You know where I learned that from.
Otherwise, the ink runs.
How you doing? Good to see you.
minutes, Mayor. I'll watch it. Get up there and trim it.
Yeah, sometimes we could use those 2 minutes.
I was surprised by that fire thing, but that would take even more time. Some digressions. I know.
I feel like the reason we have people as who they are is they have knowledge that we don't have.
But part of this is they devise a code for the country. And so, now you've got to deal with grills that's in fire country in California. And it applies.
But that's why we have a fire marshal here in Wichita, South Dakota to say, this is what we need to do.
Well, council needs to say which.
And it always out if you're not gonna enforce it.
Right, so you say all of it's in, all of it's in.
Right.
And if you say certain things are out, and you miss a couple things, then come back, or sorry, well, we're in, you just take them out.
Take them out. The only thing is if you leave the things in, and then you didn't inspect for them and somebody dies.
I assume so.
Well, you read the whole thing. And they go, 1, 3, 1, 2, really?
I see Reverend Hanson here from Resurrection Lutheran Church.
Thank you.
Please.
Let's join together in prayer. Gracious God, we thank you for today. We ask that your hand of guidance and comfort and strength would be upon all those who are struggling because of our weather today, and for those who will continue to face struggles with the storm as it keeps moving on to the east. And we ask that tonight now, as these folks gather together to make decisions and dream on behalf of our community, that you would guide them to make wise decisions, to have good discussion, that you indeed would surround and uplift this entire community. And we give you thanks for all of your gifts, and help us always to be mindful of your presence, your love, and your forgiveness. And we bring this all to you in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Barrington.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Tronis.
Here.
Gosher.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Jerks.
Here.
Rice.
Here. Having a quorum, we will convene the meeting. Approve the consent agenda items. Items appearing on the consent agenda may be removed by a city council member for discussion at the beginning of the formal agenda items. Anything that anyone wishes to? Anything else from the council? Entertain a motion to approve the request.
I move approval of the consent agenda item with the exceptions of G and H.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Is there any one from the public who wishes to have anything removed from the consent agenda? Not, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Olson.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Jerks.
Aye.
Tronis.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Barrington.
Aye.
Gosher.
Motion carried. Citizens input, if you need to address the mayor and members of the city council on an item that was not on the agenda, please come forward to the podium, state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken at this time.
Should I respond to an inquiry from last meeting, Mayor? Can I advise the council on an inquiry that was made last meeting, just for a minute or so, if I might?
I'm sorry. I didn't.
There was an inquiry at the last meeting regarding the status of the poll books, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I said I'd look into it. I met with Attorney Taylor and with the people at the county auditor's office, and they did have an absentee poll book that was sworn to by the same board that had signed every absentee poll book, and under the theory that they were effectively one book. Attorney Taylor agreed that the better practice is to have them all, since we don't receive all the poll books, to have those sworn or witnessed in every poll book, and I expect going forward that they'll consider that to be the better practice.
I appreciate you doing
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything? Yes, please come forward.
Hello, everyone. Hello,
Right down.
Mr. Mayor.
There you go.
All right. Hello, everybody. Hello, Mr. Mayor. My name's Jessica Burns. I live here in Mitchell, and I've been an employee of the scoreboard since 2008. I come to you today with some concern about 5th and Main Street, of course, the east and west side of just 5th and Main. You have 5 15-minute parking signs. There's 3 15-minute parking signs on the west side of 5th and Main, and there's 2 15-minute parking signs on the east side. I've taken pictures today after 5. I'm currently working at the Register of Deeds office. So when I got off work, I came down because that's my concern, and I'm still part-time at Scoreboard. And the concern is with the blockage of North Main and East 6th to take a right. These people from out of town pull up to eat or to park, to look at Corn Palace or shop, and you have those 5 15-minute Monday through Saturday, 8 to 5 signs. And I'm just wondering if you could please take those down for 11 months at least, so people can pull up and park and look at the Corn Palace, take their photos, shop at the Corn Palace Villa, and stop and eat at Scoreboard or the Moonlight, because food takes more than 15 minutes to make, and to enjoy it will take a little more than that. So there are 3 no parking spots with white curbs on the west side for loading zones, such as in front of Sherwin-Williams is the loading zone only. And then on the east side, where I am, the Scoreboard, there's 2 no east white curbs. You know, and that's understandable to have those white curbs where you cannot park. But there are 3 15-minute signs. There's 10 total parking spots on the west side of the street for people to park. There's 11 total spots for people to park on the east side. I just counted today after 5, from white spot to white marker spot. So 10 on the west, 11 on the east, that's 21 vehicles that could park. Vehicles can house up to 1 to more people. And I worked last Saturday and Sunday at the Scoreboard, and I watched so many people pull up in front of our business, and that one right here on the corner of our 5th and Main that says 15 minutes only, 8 to 5, Monday through Saturday. People read it, and then they drive right away. They take a left to go find a parking spot somewhere else. And maybe that will turn them off completely, and they won't go park and come back. Or maybe they will find a parking spot and come back and do their looking, shopping, eating, enjoying. But I'm just asking you, and sorry to take up so much time explaining, there's 5 15-minute, 8 to 5, Monday through Saturday. Can we please take them down for 11 months? And if you really think they're effective, then put them up. Thank you.
Could I have the chief come up and refresh us on why they're there?
Most all of these would have been requested at the downtown businesses, okay? And what happens if we don't have them there is the employees of downtown businesses will park there all day. So 15 minutes is better than none at all. And once they're there, we can't make somebody move. And that's normally what happens, but.
Can you extend it to make it 1 hour parking
Sure.
or something like that?
We can.
I think this is a really good point, because we're certainly going to be in a circumstance through the next 11 months or whatever, where parking is at a premium and we have chaos. We had talked a little bit about, when we talked about the streetscape, potentially having some, I know that we would require a little bit more width, but some where you turn in like this instead of parallel parking.
Diagonal parking.
Huh?
Diagonal parking.
Thank you. Thank you for that word, diagonal parking. Could we do that to even increase the number of parking spots for the immediate future?
When we do that, we have to give away that middle turn lane. I think that's what we looked at last time because of the width, with backing out. And some of them, their only trucks that get in is in the middle there, but
I think
for
you've got
delivery.
a really valid point. I appreciate you bringing that forward, because I'm sure that your business is not the only business that.
And I'm only really concerned about this one block, 5th and Main. And as for
5th and Main or 6th?
just 5th,
By the city.
Scoreboard on down to Dakota Sense where it's vacant. And our employees can park in the new free public parking lot that used to be Rosem's under garage car lot. Our employees don't need to park all day in front of these businesses, in front of the Moonlight, in front of Scoreboard. We don't need to. We can park in the new free parking and walk across the street to work. We can walk to the Scoreboard. And as for the Scoreboard is concerned, we have no real good parking at all with 15-minute sign out front our place. And with that little parking lot we have, and Northwestern being a private parking lot, they're private, They could have anyone tow it anytime they want. My boss has to go so far as to put a sign on the back of his building on the south side that says for scoreboard customers only. Because people pull in, they park and they take pictures and they gawk around and they get out, they walk around and they shop, and that's great. I'm in favor of it all. I love this town. I was born here back in '82. Love it. I'm down for your renovation. I just think we need to get rid of the 15-minute parking signs for 11 months. And our employees don't need to park out front of our businesses. We have Rosem's car lot that is now a free parking spot. And we at Scoreboard know to park in our back lot. Whereas GPS takes these people right to the front of these businesses, and they're gonna see road closed, blockage, 15 minutes only, and they're gonna be turned off and turned away. So I just like the 15-minute signs, and there's only 5 of them, and one's covered up by a loading zone sign to just come down for a little while. That's my concern.
Lyndon, if you went back to your minutes there and to see who requested the 5 signs and then talk to the, maybe
We
they're
could just
not
put it on
business
the,
anymore,
I could put it on the
and see if
agenda
you could
for the next
increase
meeting.
it to another 45 minutes to an hour, if that would help. If you did it all day, what's going to happen, like you said, the employees are going to park there.
It
Maybe
may not
it's
be your
you,
business.
but
It could be
it's
somebody
your
from 2
neighbor.
blocks down.
So look through the minutes,
Yeah.
see what you can come up with.
I can just put it on the next agenda. That way, if they want to come and speak,
Yeah, make sure Molly's made aware of it too.
Molly and, yeah, I would say Jones's and some of the other ones, that's,
Sure.
yeah.
Procedurally, we can't do anything tonight, even
Right.
if we thought it was a
It was
great
not on
idea. We would have to wait and publish it and all that kind of thing. So we appreciate you bringing it.
Yep, just wanted to let you know, and there's 21 available spots to park. 10 on the west, 11 on the east, but they're all for only 15 minutes. This block and this block take more than 15 minutes. To look, to eat, to shop.
Do you want me to put it on for a special traffic commission meeting in, for the next, next meeting? Okay, all right.
Anyone else have anything? Council? I would like to make an announcement that we have selected a city administrator, and her name is Stephanie Elwine. She is currently the county administrator for Brookings County and has served in that capacity for the last 13 years. And she was the first county administrator hired in that position, which I felt was a nice asset to have as far as coming into our situation anew. She's experienced that, and her intent is to start on July 14th, and she has informed the Brookings County Commission of her resignation, and she is currently looking for housing in Mitchell, and I think that she's going to be a very nice addition to the city. I believe that her qualifications and her personality fits very well, and I'm looking forward to her start and employment with the city. So with that, I guess we'll move on, unless there are any comments or questions. And is there anything else then for public input? If not, committee meetings.
Okay, Public Health and Safety was called to order at 6:40. We had 2 items on the agenda. The first one was 4th of July fireworks permit. Motion by Olson, second by Desher to approve that, with the understanding there'll be a fire truck and ambulance on site, and the location is at the west end of the lake. Second item was review new fire code. A lot of discussion about what fire code and building codes we currently have and which ones we would like to have in place. It was moved by Susan Chark, seconded by Marty Barrington, to bring that forward to the July meeting for first reading. And if there are changes and discussion, they will take place at that point. that was voted on and approved. And we adjourned at 7:07. Marty made the motion to adjourn, Mel seconded.
Traffic? Traffic Commission met tonight, started about 7:05 PM. We had 3 items on the agenda. The first was a request for a parade permit for the second annual Neolette Memorial Poker Run. And this event will be held Saturday, June 28th, starting at 10 a.m. The parade route will begin on North Sanborn in front of Rita's Cafe. It would go north to 23rd, or north to the bypass. It would then go west to Minnesota Street, and then west on 23rd Avenue out of town. This was approved. Next, the Corn Palace Stampede Rodeo Committee requested a parade permit for the rodeo parade scheduled for Saturday, July 19th, 2014, beginning at 10:30 a.m. In preparation for the parade, the request was to have no cars being allowed to park on the parade route beginning at 4:30 a.m. on either side of the street. And the route would be Main Street from 12th Avenue south to 7th, 7th Avenue west to Raleigh, Raleigh south to 6th Avenue, 6th Avenue east to Main Street south to 1st, 1st Avenue east to Lawler, Lawler Street north to 7th, with an alternative route to be able, instead of going over to Raleigh Street, we would go right through Main past the Corn Palace, as long as Mueller Construction could get the route opened up. And this was approved. Next, the Outcast Car Club requested a parade permit beginning at 1800 block North Main. It would go to 9th and Main, at which time they would join with the DWU parade on September 20th, 2014 at 10 a.m. They also requested a street closure for the Outcast Car Show at the completion of the parade to include no parking except for their cars on Main Street from Railroad, on the north side of Railroad Avenue to 6th Avenue, to include a half block either side, with 1st Avenue, 5th Avenue to remain open to through traffic, and also for Railroad to remain open to through traffic. And these street closures would begin around, or correction, would be requested until 4 p.m. And at 4 p.m., the 500 block of North Main would remain closed to include a half block either side of 6th Avenue until 12 a.m. until the completion of the dance in the Corn Palace. And this was also approved.
Entertain a motion to approve the committee reports.
So moved.
Motion and second to approve the committee reports. Any discussion? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll now address the items pulled from the consent agenda, items G and H. We need a motion to...
Would it be all right to combine those? Or do you want to do them separately?
We'll combine them.
I would move to approve G, which is to set the date for an application of the Exchange Club for a special malt beverage license, and then to also approve the application of the Exchange Club for a special event malt beverage license, and these are 2 different dates for 2 different events.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the 2 applications for special event wine and beer license. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so noted. A hearing on a special assessment roll for construction projects and nuisance abatements for 2013.
Page, well, you can look in this book that was on your desk. And this is basically the collection roll hearing to start the collection process of all the work that we done last year on sidewalks, and also the nuisance property for snow and for mowing. I just got a couple changes on page 1 that's got the actual roll. It says West 14th from Minnesota to Raleigh. Item number, assessment number 2014-3611 for the amount of $1,042.53. We need to delete that entry. The property owner paid the contractor, and I didn't find out about it right away. So we need to delete that entry. And then 2014-3613, we need to void 885 also. That one was done by the property owner, and I missed it when I was putting together the final numbers. So if you go to the last sheet, the second to last sheet, I'm sorry. If you go to page 7, this would modify the total amount for sidewalk work to be $107,524.77. And then if you go to page 3 of 3, in the beginning part of the book, the sidewalk amount would change to $107,524.77. Nuisance stays the same at $5,858, which brings our total to $113,382.77. So first we'll start with sidewalk assessments. If this is approved tonight, starting tomorrow, we'll count the 30 days of no interest. After 30 days, if you bring in your payment after that, then it'll start the 8% interest. We will accept your money here in the finance office till about the 1st of November. At that time, it goes to the county to get added to your tax rolls. For sidewalk assessments, you will have 5 years at 8% interest. That'll go on your first payment and your first half of your property taxes for 5 years. Notices will go out starting tomorrow. That'll set up your 5-year install payments. Is there anyone here that has a question about their sidewalk bill for their sidewalk collection? If so, please come up. Okay, so we will move on to the nuisance. Nuisance is a little different. Nuisance is a one-time bill, one-time charge. They have the 30 days to pay it without any interest. If they wait till after then it's one payment, so it doesn't go the 5 years like sidewalk is. It's a one-time payment. Is there anyone here that's got a question about their nuisance bill? Okay, with that, does the council got any questions?
I want to refer you to page 5 of this purple handout that you gave to us. And I'm just curious, if you look at the middle of the page down to entries 2014-3657, the total assessment there is $4,780.75. You go down a couple of more, and it's the South Dakota Housing Development Authority. Their bill is only $227.50.
Okay.
There's lot 7, there's a lot 13. Are the lots that different in size? Or?
This one was a corner lot, and she didn't have any sidewalk, and she wanted some sidewalk added. So we ended up redoing her driveway, redoing the curb and gutter, which is a lot more spendy. And she's got a long 150-foot lot. So we ended up redoing her driveway. Everything from the back of the sidewalk or whatever's in the right-of-way, that is all accessible, and then she pays for anything that's behind on the property side. So she put in all new sidewalk, redid her whole driveway. All the work that's in the public right-of-way is all added onto her assessment. And then anything that's behind in her own property is stuff that she paid for. Now, as for number 13, where it's a lot lower, this whole item, starting with sidewalk maintenance and miscellaneous sidewalk, this is just hazardous sidewalk or miscellaneous calls that I get and say, hey, I want to put in new sidewalk. Can you help me out? And I tell them we could do that, but you'll get added to this collection hearing. And then anyone that's got hazardous sidewalk, they might have 1 square, 2 squares. That's why you got the price difference. That's so much different.
And that's why I asked the question. It seemed to be difficult to believe that somebody would have $5,000 of, nuisance sidewalk. But.
And what we're finding, and that's why some of these hazardous sidewalk or these sidewalk contracts get drawn out so much more, is because when we start moving into a neighborhood people are redoing their driveways, people are redoing a lot of stuff, so it takes us, when we try to estimate how long it will take us to get through a neighborhood, it ends up almost doubling or getting 3 times the amount, just because people are improving their driveways, improving all their sidewalk, and we're having, instead of replacing 2 or 3 sections, we're replacing the whole thing. So it is a good thing. It just means the contractors are doing more work, and it's taking us a little bit longer to get some of these projects done, so. So with that, oh, go ahead.
I was going to just move to approve with the
Okay.
changes in the amounts and the removing the 2 sidewalks that were already taken care of.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the special assessment on the construction projects. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Resolution 3184, collection of special assessment rolls for 2013 construction projects and 2013 nuisance abatements.
That's basically the same item you guys just approved. So if you want to approve this one again, it's the same thing.
Motion second to approve resolution 3184. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Award bids, North Arrowhead Pass Storm Sewer Project, number 2014-30. And this one was, we had tabled the bids. And there's also a supplemental appropriation that I would guess that if we award the bid, it would be contingent upon approving the supplement to this project.
Going back to what we talked about the last time, we went back and I talked to John Vermillion and I also talked to Ron Olson about possibly doing this in-house to try to save some extra money. It's really sandy soil and going to be probably real wet. And the one end where we're starting is about 14 feet deep. So we figured it'd be a big safety issue if we were going to try to get into it with the equipment that we have. If we were to do it, we'd have to buy some equipment or rent some equipment, and it just didn't seem feasible for us to do it. Plus, it would take away from some of the projects that we're already doing in-house. So I looked at trying to take some of the parts of the project out and decided that if you guys want to move forward with this, then we would just keep all those items in there, and you would need to approve the extra money that we would have approved, that we would have, enlisted in the agenda. I don't disagree that this is not a great project. My recommendation still stands that I would like to go and try to rebid it, this winter. But I'm going to leave that up to you guys. I think we could do it cheaper by giving contractors a little bit more time to get it done. And the tough part is when we even try to bid anything at this time of the year, even though if we extend it into another year, contractors are too busy enough to almost even look at projects. We think it is an important project. That's why we designed this one in-house and tried to get something to go. So I will leave that up to you guys.
So are you saying we don't have a bid?
We had a bid, but I didn't see it. It didn't get in. I don't think it got into this agenda. The low bid was First Rate Excavate, and I think it was $92,000 and some change, but I don't remember the exact dollar amount.
And what do we have budgeted roughly?
We had we have in the account right now about $82,000, and so we would need. We have some extra that I didn't account for some of the work in there for doing asphalt and some of that concrete work.
So Terry, if you delay it, what's it gonna cost the city? You said it would save us more.
Well, I think I did some estimates and I talked to some contractors and they feel that we could probably do it roughly in that 70,000 range. of what, so the 92 could be a 70,000 number.
Well, we don't know.
But we don't know, it's a guess.
You know, we don't know, and obviously, currently look at a lot of other estimates besides a project like this, and we've been off on all of them, and it's like, of late. You know, which I think in the construction business, I think we better get comfortable with this, is what I'm trying to get at. So when we get to our budget process this year, we better be ready for next year and moving all our numbers up, because I don't see our bids gonna be starting to come in much lower from what I hear out there in the building business that's going on, so.
What we're hearing is, if you want to try to bid on a project, don't try to bid on it during the summer. Try to bid on the winter. If not, do it in the late fall, do it right after the first of the year. Contractors are so busy working on projects, they're not even looking at bids. And if they do get one, they're putting in a high number, and hopefully they get it, and try to work it in their schedule.
When did we bid this?
We bid it 2 weeks ago.
So that money, that $82,000 that you have in the account is dedicated to this project?
Yes, yeah.
And they can get this project done this year.
And I still stand where I'm at. We're gonna be pushing some projects off. We already know that. We've already been looking at our little crystal ball we're getting. And I just think there's win-win that we keep on pushing every single one of them off. We're gonna have to do some of them already. We know that. I think this is a smaller amount of dollars. It's not a $200,000, $300,000 number. It's a smaller number of a project that we still can get done, because every year we can't keep on pushing things back, because our infrastructure ain't gonna slow down. It's gonna keep on getting worse every single year if we don't put money into it. And I just think this is one of the projects that's been in the line for how long. We know we've had problems. We've heard from the people that live in that area of the multiple concerns we have. And we have other issues out here in the city of Mitchell, in other areas in our community. But like I was saying the other night, say, I don't know, in an area, I'm just gonna say, Fifth Street is a problem somewhere on Fifth Street. They're sort of scheduled for next year, 2015. Now they just got bumped to 2016. When do we keep on bumping, and when do we stop bumping and get some of our projects done and happen to have to pay a little bit more money? So I'm gonna stand by where I'm at. I'm still gonna support this and vote yes on it to get this project done and
We're talking about a difference of $11,000 essentially.
You could argue that God weighed in today.
Terry, if we approve this, will they start this summer?
Yes, because they got a completion of, I think it's the end of September. So we still got time to get in there and do some paving.
See, I should have picked up on it sooner, I apologize for not, but, I don't know if you got, should incorporate a contingency resolution at the end of the agenda and incorporate the contingency. Otherwise, if you approve this, subject to the, approval of the supplemental appropriation, the approval isn't really approval until first reading, second reading, publication plus 20 days. So we're way up there.
But we can still go ahead and award the bids tonight.
Well, we got 30 days to award bid by law.
This would be, we've already tabled it, so
Yeah.
we don't,
So I'm suggesting that, the contingency resolutions are boilerplate. Give it a number, if you've got the money in contingency to this project, just give it a number, amend the agenda to include a boilerplate contingency resolution for this project, and then amend the appropriation ordinance, supplemental appropriation to refund contingency, so that we're square with the law and don't get an audit. Just don't have a problem with the contractor or something like that, and it's not arrive.
Well, I understand about the publication dates, but you can award the bid, and we don't pay until the completion of the project, so the 20 days and so forth really isn't going to make any difference when it comes to writing the check. I understand the point. I'm going to move that we approve this contingent on the approval of the supplemental appropriation that comes later in the agenda.
Second.
I do not recall who we are awarding the bid to.
first rate excavate.
Okay. Yeah, we have a motion and a second to award the bid contingent upon the approval of the supplemental appropriation.
I got a question. The supplemental appropriation we have in here doesn't include any contingency for this. It would be a supplemental appropriation coming at a future meeting.
If you're gonna approve the bid, you have to just approve it, and then we're out of
Right,
order.
but Mel's point was approve it contingent upon the supplemental appropriation in this packet, but that's not true. There is no supplemental appropriation for this extra $10,000 in this packet.
It is, actually. Page 93, under storm drainage. 30,000 is what I told Marilyn that we would need to approve in order to get this project to go. When I had originally done it, I estimated right around 40-some thousand, and the rest was to pay for curb and gutter, asphalt, and stuff like that. I said, if we're going to be behind by about 30,000, and if they want to proceed with this, I need an additional 30,000 to go with the same bid. So that's why I asked Marilyn to put 30,000 in there under this supplemental appropriation.
I thought it was 11. Why 30?
We only have 11 from the amount that we bid to the amount that what just the contractor is going to do is 11,000. Okay, the city is going to use city contractors to do the asphalt work and the curb and gutter and concrete paving. That's that additional 18,000 that we need in order to do the paving and the concrete work.
Yeah, we would be out of order in giving notice of award and entering a contract with him on a contingency. He can still, I guess, accept the contract until the Maryland has legal access to the money. That was my first concern.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to award the bid on the North Arrowhead Pass Storm Sewer Project, number 2014-30. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
And I'll stay.
Maybe have a roll call vote, please.
Barrington,
Aye.
Jerks,
Aye.
Rice,
No.
Olson,
Aye.
Tronis,
No.
Dosher,
No.
excuse me,
No.
Allen,
Aye.
Smith.
Abstain.
We have 4 yes and 3 no.
So the motion carried.
Yeah.
Motion approved. Award bids for the Gabion Rip Wrap North Side of the Spillway Project 2013-27.
I'll have Jeff McCormick come up too. This was passed out. This was passed out on your desk. This is the Gabion concrete mat project that we were looking at going on the north side of the spillway. Let's see my bid. We had one bidder, and it was Vanderpool Dragline in the amount of $258,543.72 to complete this year. We put in an alternate to complete for next year, and he only lowered it by $2,000. When we called the contractor told us some of his concern was he put a lot of risk into his bid because he's going to be working around the intake structure that is in the lake. And just in case the concrete mat falls in, it'll cover up that intake structure and he'd have to try to dig it out of there. The reason why we mainly went with this concrete mat system is we felt it would be the best pedestrian-friendly type of shoreline to use. And we wanted to use it as a test, because as we go from here, going all the way to Kibbe Park, we're going to have to go with a system somewhat like this because the slope is so steep. Jeff's estimate was originally 174,000. Yeah, which you see right on there. So what our recommendation is to reject the bids, being we only had one bidder. Rebid it this winter and rebid it in cable mat and the riprap. We had some contractors say you could do it a lot cheaper if you do it in a riprap.
Remind us what the cable mat looked like.
Cable mat is, just imagine a carpet with these concrete squares. They're all tied together with cable. And the mats come in an 8x8 or an 8x16. And then the smaller blocks are like an 8x8, 8-inch by 8-inch. They're all tied together. They're all precast.
I remember that. And it goes out into the lake. It extends.
And I guess, and some of the reason that we looked at that, and part of the alternative or the benefit to it is we don't have to do as much grading, because it doesn't have to be, if we go to a rock riprap, we have to have a slope that'll hold the riprap, so it doesn't just roll down the hill or fall off. And the same thing is we have to take the riprap all the way to the bottom to where the lake flattens out, otherwise the rock's just gonna all roll down the hill as it moves. So the contractor that did, because I called all the plan holders that I thought would bid it, just seeing why we didn't only got one bid. A couple of them said they just didn't have time to put the bid together. Another one said he's too full for construction. I don't know if he noticed the October date, but he said he's already filling up through next year, so he maybe didn't think he could get even the second part of it done, even with the deduct. And so it's hard to know if what we've got here is a real fair price, because we only got one bidder. We could have 4 bidders and they could all been the same amount. It's hard to guess on that part of it. But the contractor that said, we could do a lot cheaper with riprap, while he was comparing the quantities of square footage of cable mat and just converting that to riprap. Well, yeah, you can do it a lot cheaper. The problem is I got to do a lot more riprap to get to the bottom of the hill so all my rock doesn't fall down. Plus I have to do more grading in order to set the rock down. So I don't necessarily know if that's going to be a cheaper option. When I did a preliminary estimate with the rock riprap, I was at $215,000. So looking at if it came in where my estimate was at, yeah, it would be a little bit cheaper for this option of it. It does change the aspect of it, how it's going to look. It does change how we talked about phase 2, should that ever happen, of what we can use there, and this would all continue on and tie together with that. Terry mentioned the fact of the contractor's risk. We have a water intake structure that is in the location where we're doing the work. Part of the bid was we required the contractor to do a dive and record video of what the intake structure looks like today or before he starts working, so that when he goes and does the work, and then we were going to have the city do a post inspection of it, so that we know if he dropped a bunch of rock or dirt or a bunch of stuff sloughed off, or his carelessness caused problems. Well, the contractor's concerned that regardless of how careless he is or not, if some of that, when he starts taking those gabions out and a bunch of those rocks slide down the hill or something sloughs away, and all of a sudden now he's stuck with it, having to repair it. And he said $30,000 or whatever is not going to cover it. Well, that's a hard number for me to try to put an estimate to on what his opinion of risk is on a project. So I think that's part of our difference between our estimates. The other is we don't, there's not a lot of cable mat of this application that's bid in South Dakota. So it's hard to get an idea of what that cost would be. I talked to suppliers, tried to get estimates where they're at. I think I might have been a little bit low on where that number was. But with one contractor, it's really hard to decide if we got a fair bid. So maybe more in the fact if we want to look at a riprap as an option, we can certainly reject these, bid as an alternate, see if we can get more interest in it to see if we've got a fair price. If this is a fair price, and we can get it done this year for just the same price as we can next year, maybe going ahead with this bid is the same thing. A lot of the stuff that Marty, you just talked about. We've also been talking to other contractors. Prices are going to start going up a little bit. There's a lot of work out there. We've got a lot of projects that have been recently throughout the state that are getting rejected because they've come in high. got projects where, and again, one bidder. It's just, there's not a lot of people looking for a lot of work on that aspect. They're having trouble to find good workers and the number of workers they need. So it might be a swing that we're starting to see that phase, so, our crystal ball isn't clear enough to see if this is gonna be better next year or not, but,
Some of the concern that I have is when going back to our budget hearings, when we talked about this, if we go to riprap, it might be less and it might not, because like you said, if we're gonna fill in more of the lake bottom. The thing about it is, I know the reason why we went to this type of design is because of where it's at, user-friendly. We know the bike path might be running across there sometime, to be able to have people use it, fish off it, stuff like that. That was the purpose of the design, so that what we need to ask ourselves as a council, are we even interested in a riprap bid? Even if it did come in, because the point of the reason why we went away from that is because we were worried about the structure design of this area, is what we were trying to do. And then obviously how we're gonna tie it in for the future if we keep on moving towards Kibbe Park, like Terry said. So if we're not interested in a riprap bid, then we just gotta decide, do we wanna rebid to see if this same type of material comes back less or move forward? Obviously his estimate is low. We budgeted $200,000 for this project, so we're actually low by $58,000, not 80 like we look at. We budget $200,000 in our book that I looked at. And the other thing that we've been pulling out every year that I mentioned a little bit ago to Dave, but Dave wasn't familiar with it, is we have been pulling $50,000 out every year for the last 3 years for lake shoreline stabilization, exactly what we're doing here. So we actually have another $150,000 in a separate account, besides the $200,000 in this account. So there's actually $350,000 for lake shoreline stabilization is what I'm trying to get at. Now, I'm not saying totally move forward this project. You guys know how I feel about this kind of issue that's going on, but this isn't one that we're doing because we want to do it. We're doing it because the Gabions are falling in. They're going to come in if they're already partially brought away already, and we're right by our spillway, down the road by Kibbe Park. And that's something that we sort of want to do. This isn't what we want to do. The shoreline is eroding away by the spillway. If you don't believe me, go out there and take a look. I mean, like I said, there's one project you want to keep pushing that. You got to take a look at. Do you keep on pushing back projects that have to be done?
No, this isn't the one that's the wall, is it, Terry? Because we looked at one that was a wall, one that was kind of the concrete, and then riprap a little bit further down. So
I came here and just discussed 3 different options of it, of doing the seawall, of a vertical wall in some portions of it, doing this concrete cable mats, and then the rock riprap option of it. The results of that, or the direction we got from McGann at the time, was to proceed with this cable mat alternative. It's the same discussion that we had. It's one of the same areas that we looked at with the seawall. The next part of it, moving up and around the corner where it gets tighter and steeper, is maybe a little bit, I think that's where the seawall started to see the advantage in cost versus some of the other options. But this is kind of the same area.
Okay.
And this would not be beneficial, cost-wise, the seawall would not.
I don't remember what the seawall was for the first phase of it. I think it was up there. It was more than what
we selected
even the
more reasonable. We took those sections and you kind of talked us through that.
Through each one had, and at some point it crosses over to the other one being the most economical, and then vice versa.
Yeah.
I think this one, we picked the middle one, we picked what was the lower one, but.
So Marty, my question for you though is, what is your response to the fact that we only have one bidder here? I mean, do you feel like you don't feel like it's worth it for us to try and rebid this again, given that we've already allowed a October 1st, 2015 deadline?
And I think the way the work out there is obviously one point, like you mentioned, no doubt about it. But this same individual even said that next year I'll do it, and he says, I'm not going down on my price. I'm going to go up. So, I mean, he'll have to decide if he wants to post the same number and maybe lose out because now his number's been revealed. But his attitude up here was the same thing. I'm not going down. He was, we're already getting work for next year. So yeah, we can wait. How many of these other ones are already getting work for next year? I mean, in our construction that we're in, we're already pricing out bids for next year. We're not 4 months away. We're over a year away, and I don't see why we'd be any different than any other contractors that are out there looking for bids already for next year. So, if I had it my way, which you guys all know, where I kept on going, it would have went all the way to Kibbe Park for $1.5 million, I think it was. But Tim McGannon was the one that said, we're not going to give you that, but this is an area that I do highly recommend we do. And that was from Tim, and obviously was saying that we can't monkey around with this area right here because we are right next to our spillway area. So he took it so far and said, this is where I'm stopping, and you guys can decide if we want to go more. We nixed that portion of it, but we still kept
the spillway area intact, because we knew we can't push that one away anymore. We gotta do something, because the gabions are falling in the water already. So,
I'm willing to take your recommendation about the bids, but I do have a question, you know. I don't think any of us were on the council. Maybe Marty and Jeff were, but I don't even think you were on the council. When the council was told that the gabions were going to last a minimum of 75 years. And unless I look really good for my age, it's been nowhere near 75 years. So one of the things I guess I'd like us to consider is which of these options is going to last the longest. And that might be worth a little extra money up front rather than, you know, I know we're not talking about gabions, but doing, you know, whatever the process would be, and then having to redo it 30 years earlier, 10, 40 years earlier, whatever. Is there any judgment professionally which is going to last longer and maybe would be a better route, even if it was a little more expensive?
No, and I think with any option, you're obviously going to have some type of maintenance, and you're going to have some areas that are, going to start to see failure. If they're addressed right away, they can maybe be corrected. But as far as useful life versus the retaining wall or the cable mats or the rock riprap, obviously the riprap's not going to get any older. That's a problem, but it could get moved around more with ice and so forth. I'd have to probably do some looking and get back to you on that, because I don't know what the cost analysis per year for a seawall or the cable mats. The concrete's not going to go bad in any respect to it. But
do you have any idea of how long that riprap's been on the area, the lakeside face of the dams south?
Well, if I was going to answer your question from my experience in the lake, there is riprap that's been around the lake and other areas that have been there a very long time. Obviously, we know the gabions around Lake Campground. They finally went in, last year or year before. The other set down the road, past North Arm, past the public beach, that one fell in, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years ago or 6 years ago, which were gabions. So all the gabions are going to go in some. And the islands gabions now have the road, they fell in now last year. So the island is another thing that we might just want to deteriorate away, but it's something we're going to look down the road if we're going to try to save that island or not, because they fell in the water now too. So they're all going to go, so we just got to keep piecing together. So, but what I'm getting at, from what I've seen, I would say riprap is probably, I think, lasting the best out there. And not that I've came across this concrete wall yet or a seawall yet either, but I know one of our whole pictures of this project was once you go riprap, I believe it keeps you forced that way to keep going. And if we were trying to make this aesthetically pleasing and also to be user-friendly, riprap isn't your choice then this is something you want to use, because you can go down there and fish off it, stand on it, and stuff like that. So I think it's more the area it is. If it was someplace else on the other side of the lake, I wouldn't be looking at this type of wall and looking at riprap to put in.
But you see my point. I might save money buying a used car and then use it all up on car repairs rather than paying.
Correct, yeah. I understand.
The one concern we had with the cable mat was, would the cable rust over time, being it's sitting in the water? But we found out that the cable is stainless steel, so it should be a durable type product. But we don't know until.
You started out by saying you guys reject.
The biggest reason why I said that is because we have one contractor. If you want to try to go with the cable mat, it's probably close to a fair price, but we don't know for sure because we only had one bidder.
And Jeff, you said that you had talked to several contractors and were hoping that they would bid, but the time of the year is obviously they're out there in the field.
There was 6 other contractors on the plan holders list that had plans for the project. 2 of them mentioned they just did not have a time under their current workload to actually put a bid together. Not that they weren't interested in the work, they just didn't have the time to actually get the work, put it together. One contractor said he didn't have time to get the work done. I don't know if he saw the October date or not. At that point, it was after the bid, it was too late. I actually didn't call them because I thought they were more of a supplier. And talking to one of the other contractors, he had mentioned this other contractor and stated that they didn't bid it because it looked too risky for the type of work that they feel comfortable doing. And let's see, one other bidder grabbed plans because he thought it was gonna be rock riprap. When he saw it wasn't rock riprap, he wasn't interested. So, that's the rundown of the 6-7 bidders that I received that actually had plans.
Question, Terry, if we want to look at bidding this later, why did we not build it 5 months ago already, or bid it out 5 months ago? I mean, is this gonna be a problem with all our bid opening that we're gonna have for the next 2 months, anything that we haven't? I'm just curious if we're gonna wait to see next winter, why wouldn't we have done it 6 months ago when it was winter time, when we knew this was a project that we had on our list? I'm just curious of the delay. When we know bidding in the winter time is our best way to get our best money.
Yeah, we were trying to get this project out as soon as we can, and by the time we got plans ready to go, and get it on the agenda and approve it, this was our timing. You know, it takes us about roughly a month and a half by the time we have plans ready to go and the time we could do the bid. Sure, you know, with knowing what I know now, I'm not gonna be bidding anything more until this winter, just because it's not worth it.
So you're saying we're gonna set the date sometime in January?
January or say, even November, December. I mean, the other thing is, there's not a lot of contractors that probably do this cable mat just because it's fairly new to this area. So we might only have a couple bidders. We don't know.
I will comment on a couple of the things that you mentioned. No, I think this is kind of all, the workload for contractors kind of caught us everybody by surprise this year. I've never had this come up. We bid a lot of projects in May and June that this hasn't been an issue. I talked to one contractor that's actually down in the winter area. I asked him, I said, you know, we had a lot of projects coming through with stimulus stuff in 2008, 2009 around the state. I didn't see this as being the issue. And he said it's workforce. He said in 2008, 2009, he was employing 90 workers. Right now he's struggling to keep 30. So when contractors are running at 2/3 or 1/3 of their operating capacity, that's gonna take a lot of work out of there. So I'm surprised. You know, we didn't see any of this the last years. We bid a lot of projects in June or even July if they're done in August that we haven't had that problem before. But it's a little different than what we've seen in the past. And yeah, we've needed to work at getting all the bids out a little bit sooner. And it's obviously everyone's seeing that. I mean, the state's seeing it. They've rejected a few bids on recent projects here. Everybody's going to fill up sooner and sooner. So unless the workforce turns around on it.
And obviously, where we know where I'm at, I'm gonna still support this with the fact that I want the council to consider this. We have $200,000 budgeted for this project, so we're not upside down as much as we look at. And we also have another line item that is for lake shoreline stabilization. If we're not gonna use the money that's in it, then why are we putting it in there? And this is a recommendation from Tim McGannon that told us to get this part of the spot process done. So just keep that in your thought process when we're deciding here in just a minute of no or yes, of what we've done and why are we here right now tonight talking about this.
And this is a real Vegas throw, because if we reject the bid and it comes back at 40,000, I'll be stupid. We look brilliant. And if we reject the bid and it comes back, the low bid out of the 6 bids is 350,000, you're going to get to say, I told you so quite a bit. I think you made a valid point about putting money away, and if we're not going to use it for that purpose, you know, why are you saving? I'm torn.
I just like to say, one budget, and that's, everything comes through, and if we're asking for more money, supplementing everything, and you gotta just say no sometimes.
And Randy, I understand that, but if we didn't have that 150,000 dedicated to this, or if that's all the money we had, it would be a valid point. But when you've got the $200,000 plus the $150,000, I mean, if we don't want to use it for this, that's fine. But then we should earmark, you know, what it is for, and decide. I mean, to me, it's this kind of thing that it's for. But I certainly understand your philosophy.
Well, we'll find out. I'm going to make a motion to approve the bid for $258,000 to Vanderpool dragline.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to award the bid for $256,543.72 to Vanderpool Dragline Incorporated, project number 2013-27.
I had one question for Marilyn. Being we have 200,000 and there's this other account that's got that extra 150,
Is it 150 or 350?
150 in that one. Yeah. 200 and the 150 is the total.
I see what you're saying.
so we could use both of those accounts in order to fulfill this contract, and we don't need to table until,
The money is available in there, but it really sits in general funds. We really need to appropriate it probably into the project account.
so do we need to, table this?
I think you should until we can do a supplemental again.
Or do you want the motion to be based on contingency or approval of contingencies?
You could do that if,
Yeah, that will work.
in order to get this to move along from a table to an approval.
Right. I mean, if we all know if we're gonna approve this, then I would expect you to, or, hope that you're gonna approve the contingency at a later date of the funding. So with that, I'll reword my process, and I'll award the bids, based on approval of contingencies at a later meeting of the funding.
Can I make one other comment? I'm assuming you're bidding it, or making the motion to award the base contract of completion this year?
Correct.
Okay. Rather than with the alternate? Okay.
And I would agree with Marty, if you're against the money, you should be against this motion.
Correct.
And it's a very tough vote because it's so far over, but we all understand why, and Jeff and Terry have explained it to us. As Marty pointed out, I think Mr. Vanderpool is gonna do nothing but go up, and Jeff told us we're gonna have one more bidder, so if that's the understanding, why would the next bidder come in much less than this? We've already seen the Gavians fall in. When we looked at it, if we have a high next year, we saw the rain, as Mel pointed out, and all of a sudden, we see erosion along that road. We tried to get Department of Labor's attention and just couldn't do it. Transportation. So, this is a tough vote, but I honestly, God, think we need to get this taken care of. I think it's an issue out at Lake Mitchell.
We have a motion and a second to award the bid to Vanderpool Dragline. We'll have a roll call vote, please.
And is there a contingency with that?
There was a contingency of the supplemental appropriation.
And you and I and Marilyn can discuss that further tomorrow in our
Rice?
No.
Gosher?
No.
Allen?
No.
Smith?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Tronis?
Aye.
Barrington?
Aye.
Jerks?
Aye.
5 yes and 3 no.
Motion carried. Award bids, library custom furniture equipment appliances project number 2013-7A2. I believe you have a handout.
On your desk should be a handout, and I'm having Larry Jerza come up so it could help answer any of the questions. We split it out kind of like what we explained to you before as 16 different items. And Larry's recommendation is to approval of item number 1, 5, 8, and 10. So item number 1 was the stone tabletops. Item number 5 were the kitchen appliances. Item number 8 was the workroom table bases. Item number 10 was the workroom workstations, all to Sankota Construction for a total amount of $29,800. We're also recommending to award item number 7 to Chuck's Paint and Blinds for $5,551.22. And we would recommend to table the other bids so we could take a look at them a little bit more and do some checking on some of the pricing.
Okay, once again, why only one bidder on these things?
I don't know. I didn't even get a bid for wall covering at all. And I knew 2 subcontractors were looking at it, and we just didn't get a bid.
Now, the nice beauty or not good beauty, but the nice thing with not getting a bid on some of these is we could go out and get quotes. The one thing that we have to do as part of state law is whenever you're bidding on a project, you have to turn in a bid bond, just to be able to bid on something. And it's a percentage of what your project's gonna cost. Now, some of these people don't wanna get into a bid bond, so that could be some of those items. We don't do a performance bond on any of the stuff that is being supplied. So now what we could do, if we don't get a bid on any of these items, we could go out and we could get quotes from a couple different contractors and then just go with that. So.
Hey Larry, the number 6, the security equipment.
Yes.
I mean, we plan on just trying to bid that out at a later date. I mean, I would hope we're going to proceed with security.
We don't think we're gonna do that, and I'll tell you why. The security system, we had one other quote from 3M and got a budget number of like $74,000, and I'm not sure who actually bid this. Suncota submitted a bid. But we got to thinking about it, and we thought, if $1,000 worth of books get stolen a year, and we're paying $57,000 for security equipment, that means we should be able to pay for books for 57 years. In other words, I don't think the value's there. In talking with Jackie at the librarian, she agreed that the security system is way too expensive for what we're protecting. I don't know exactly how many books they lose.
Concerned about books during the day or theft at
But
nighttime?
books being taken out during the day and
I was
apparently doesn't
looking at
amount to
theft
that much.
at the nighttime, where you can go in and take, obviously not books, but probably take way more than.
Yeah, but let's
$7,000.
define the security system.
Right, I guess that's what I'm
It's
asking
just for
about.
books.
Books
Okay.
beeping when you
Yeah,
walk
it was-
through and not cameras and.
Yeah, that's what I was
other stuff?
misleading on, is what kind of security are we?
Oh, I'm
providing here?
sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was the book sensor.
Okay.
As you walk through it, each book would have a magnetic tag on it.
I'm looking at full surveillance at night,
Yeah.
cameras and all that stuff, like, we're not gonna have that for our library.
Yeah, this was just for the book security. But I will say, looking at all the other items, the previous bid we had was 191,000, and we're just under 70, or just over 70. We're almost 71 for the items if we took all the items. But I wanted to wait for the second phase that's on the main library part of the building on the south side of the main corridor, because we didn't get a bid for wall covering, which we're gonna need to do in one room, because after they'd moved out of the room, we saw it was peeling off. Not to say that's gonna be a big dollar item, but I just wanna be sure we have everything covered on that south side, because there's things we can adjust, if we need to. And that was the whole reason of tabling all the items on the south side of the corridor and approving the items on the north side of the corridor, so we could stay on schedule and get that done, because everybody's on the schedule now to move across the corridor on the 23rd of June. So that's when they're planning to move out. So we just wanted to, kind of keep things rolling along.
If we award these bids tonight, Larry, it's $35,351. I know we've talked numbers in the past, but what, was it 70, or what was the number?
That was the number I was looking at, to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 70, and that's where we are now. We're $70,900 and some dollars, I believe, is what all of these total up to be.
What about these items that we're not accepting? Is that what you're including those, or?
Oh, the items that we're not accepting tonight, those are the ones I just want to, well, let me just say the security equipment, I say we don't accept that at all.
Right.
But the other items, we plan on accepting them if the numbers look okay and our wall covering looks okay and all that fits into the budget, which I'm saying it will, but I just want a chance to look at them and just verify the numbers. Because we hadn't really bid some of this stuff before. We never got a bid on a lot of this stuff before.
So if we approve the ones you're recommending, we're not rejecting the other items?
No,
We're
we're tabling them.
just tabling. Being we had the bid today at 1:30, we just didn't have enough time to call some people, do some checking on it.
And we, just a comment, and we talked about the security, and even 15 years ago, the books were the things that you had to protect in the library from leaving. And obviously, that's changing radically and drastically, because we're not even budgeting to buy as many books. We're buying books on tape, we're buying CDs, we're buying electronic subscriptions, we're buying electronic everything. From a security standpoint, what items do we need to protect? Our infrastructure of our network?
Vandalism.
Vandalism?
He's asking about facility security.
Oh,
No, I'm asking about what is
Inside.
the value in the library from a security standpoint that you need to protect? Is it knowledge, information? It's not hardcover books anymore, because you don't need to go to the library to get the information that's in the book. You need to go to the library to get the book if you want to hold it.
I think Mike Marty's point was the point that's probably more important.
Yeah,
It's the night security, not the day security.
Right.
Cameras, server, firewall, that kind of thing.
Right. Okay.
So, tell me how you decided which ones of these you thought were worth taking the bids as opposed to getting a quote.
well, the items that we had, let me back up. When we bidded this thing the first time, I'd gone to some subcontractors here in town, got some budget numbers. Remember, the first time we bid this, they didn't bid. They didn't bid because one forgot and Sun Coda got a contractor out of Sioux Falls just to throw a number together so he could submit a number. These bids now relate more to the numbers that they gave me. So I know, so these were the numbers, I had in the back of my mind that, they were reasonable numbers. These numbers that we're planning on doing on the first phase, like I said, are for the north side of the corridor, so we can try to get that pretty much finished before the 23rd, so when we move in, it's not real disruptive. Now, some of these things like work tables, those can be moved in at any time. That's not a big deal. But the reason why I look at these items on the north side of the corridor is to be acceptable because they are very close to the numbers that I've gotten previously. For instance, just to give you an example of what I went through to kind of accomplish this, when I went to Thunes Hardware and got a quote for appliances, Spence did not want to go through all the paperwork to bid it, so I told him to, if you want to bid this, give your bid to Sun Coda Construction. Sun Coda will provide the bond, you will be working for Sun Coda. And I did that with a couple, actually there's 3 of them in here, 4 of them that are like that, because they didn't want to bid individually, so I had them give their bids to Sun Coda. Now, Sun Coda may have gotten other bids. I'm not sure exactly who all the subcontractors are, but the numbers are comparable to the numbers that I had gotten previously. So that's the whole development of this, trying to get people involved. Pardon?
The practical matter is a lot of this stuff that you normally just go buy and not bid, but for the.
Well, it's certainly easier to do it, more efficient to just go buy it. Because,
Well, I understand his rationale, what he's saying, but.
because, well, for instance, the appliances. Of all the work we ended up getting the number that's higher than the number I could have got just going down and buying it. And it takes, but that's the process, my understanding, we have to legally go through to do that. So that's what we did.
I'll move approval of items 1, 5, 8, and 10 to Sunkota Construction, and item 7 to Chuck's Paint and Blind, and table all the rest.
Second.
We have a motion to accept the bidums for 1, 5, 8, and 10 for Sunkota, and item number 7 to Chuck's Paint and Blind. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Resolution 3182, functional classification of roads and urban boundaries from South Dakota Department of Transportation. And this was continued from the June 2nd, 2014 meeting.
All right, if I could have someone hit the lights. Then we have DOT here, and I'll have them come up. We're going to go through just a quick little explanation of what functional classifications are, and then we'll answer any questions and go through some of the areas. And we're going to skip this urban boundary because we already went through the urban boundary the last time, and that was already approved. So functional classifications, changing functional classification has nothing to do with jurisdiction or ownership. Functional classifications, the change in functional classes doesn't mean a change in maintenance or ownership. Change in functional class does not limit you on future road design criteria. It has to do with traffic pattern and use, mobility, and access. So first we're going to talk about what a principal arterial, interstate freeways, expressways, and other principal arterials are. The description of what these are is providing a high degree of mobility and a lower amount of access to keep traffic moving. Interconnect and provide continuity for major rural corridors to accommodate trips entering and leaving urban area and movements through the urban areas. So a principal arterial limits the amount of access. Urban minor arterial, which connects interstate highways and bypass, interconnect highway once they hit the urban boundary. Interconnect and augment the higher level arterials. Distribute traffic to smaller geographic areas. Provide more land access. Provide urban connections for rural connectors, or provide more access, less mobility. So this basically has more access to property, where the one before doesn't give you much access to property. An urban expressway, more mobility, less access. Urban collector, gathering traffic from local roads and funneling them into arterial network. Serve both land access and traffic circulation. Distribute and channel trips between local roads and arterials. And local roads, all the remaining roads other than arterial and collectors. Direct access to adjacent land and access to highway systems. Now we'll go to the map that was provided to us from Larry Dean with the DOT. So right now you have a map, and this is also in your packet. And we'll go over some of the ones first where we had the biggest concern. And let's just go over Havens, which is item number 3. We'll go on Havens from Ullman up to Burr Street, and then going down Burr from Havens all the way to the interstate. The reason why they're looking at changing this route is originally it was a arterial.
Yeah, my name's Larry Dean. I'm with South Dakota DOT. I'm the planning data manager. And originally this classification was a principal arterial other. But one of the things we should add to Terry's slideshow is, based upon the new transportation bill that was passed in July of 2012, anything that's classified as a principal arterial other is part of the national highway system. And the loops don't meet the guidelines for the national highway system. And like Terry said in his slideshow, the havens and the Burr, they actually provide more access than they do mobility is the biggest difference there, other than not being part of the national highway system.
So that would eliminate the, limit at least the amount of federal funds.
It does not affect the federal funds whatsoever. The functional classification basically.
So, I'm sorry to interrupt. So then why does it matter?
It really, basically what it is, it's a data gathering for Federal Highway Administration. And I have Mark Hoynes with me from the Federal Highway Administration. And basically for the functional classification, it basically classifies and symbolizes how the traffic is channelized throughout your community. And any of the functional classifications that are classified as a urban collector or higher are the federal aid eligible routes. And those federal aid eligible routes are what you can use your STP funds, that's your surface transportation funds.
So it does make a difference.
That's basically the bottom line on there. So anything that's classified as an urban collector or higher is a federal aid eligible route. If that answers your question. And the last time we did this was in 2005.
Right, so for example, when we take Sanborn Avenue in the South Dakota 90 loop, and we take them from the urban principal arterial to urban minor arterial, I just heard you say that has money ramifications.
Basically, it does not have money ramifications, only the classifications are classified as an urban collector or higher. So you have the principal arterials, and then you have the minor arterials, and then you have the urban collectors. Those are all the ones that indicate which routes are federal aid eligible. But as for the amount of money that's being appropriated to the city of Mitchell, no, it has absolutely nothing to do with it.
Well, we do have a few roads that are being changed, that are being downgraded, it looks like.
That is correct, and
That would have, because
well,
you've got an urban collector.
I came out here this spring, earlier this spring, and I met with the mayor and Terry, and basically for the DOT, the only ones I proposed was the 90 loop, which is Havens and Burr, because it doesn't meet the criteria of the national highway system. And I asked for their input, and this was the input from Terry.
So we get our STIP money based totally on population, is that correct?
Yeah, my name's Doug Kenneberg. I'm the local government engineer, and I do manage all the federal funds for the cities and the counties that come through the DOT. And that is correct. The 16 Class 1 cities, the formula for distribution of funds is strictly based on population. The counties are slightly different than that in their formula.
I go back to what happens if we say, we like Sanborn Avenue to be a principal arterial, and we say no to this reclassification. Does the federal government declare us persona non grata and close our roads? Or, I mean, I'm trying to find out why we would even do this.
The only time that you're really going to see any financial implications if, per se, you had a urban collector and you downgraded that to a local road. Now, there is a caveat there, depending on when that timeline was done. Some roads will remain federal aid eligible indefinitely if it was done prior to 1991. But yes, if you had an urban collector and you downgraded it to a local road, it would no longer be federal aid eligible if it was originally put in after 1991. Anything above an urban collector or a rural major collector will remain federal aid eligible. So yes, a change from a principal arterial to a minor arterial will make absolutely no difference on federal funding.
So what happens if we don't change the classification?
I'll let Mark address that one.
Oh, I will. I'm Mark Hoynes. I'm with Federal Highway Administration. I'm the federal entity that approves this. Let me take a little step back before I answer your question. This road really never probably should have been a principal arterial. And we took a long, hard look at these after the transportation bill, the most recent one, MAP 21 passed. And the main reason we did that is because Federal Highway Administration is going to require on the National Highway System, we're promulgating rules right now for performance measures. So we wanted to look at that and say, and they actually headquarters gave us an opportunity to do that, to say, look at them, because when the new rules pass, we're going to have to collect extra data on those roads. We're going to have to report performance measures. If the performance measures don't achieve, Federal Highway is going to force DOTs to spend money on those roads to raise those performance measures up. Things like pavement condition, safety, doesn't really apply here, but congestion, other things like that. So we looked at all of these. Another road that you probably are very familiar that we did this to was 41st Street in Sioux Falls, because 41st Street should not have been a principal arterial either. All this was done before Larry and I were ever here when they first set this all up. We've kind of allowed it to go on because there was these thresholds that we had to look at, and we were still within our thresholds. There was really no harm in it. So what I'm saying right now, this road is under the jurisdiction of the state, I see. So the state, if this stays on the National Highway System because it's a principal arterial, we will be.
It doesn't meet the guidelines.
Right, it doesn't. But I'm just saying, if it did stay on there, we would require more data collection and all that. Your question of what we are going to do, actually, I'd be more apt to not approve their functional class if this is not downgraded. So to a minor arterial, because it isn't functioning as a principal arterial. Also, with us knowing about the performance measures and all of that, we would probably not approve the functional class if that stayed at a principal arterial. In addition, what the requirements are for the state to do is consult and bring this to you. South Dakota DOT has chosen always to get a resolution from the governing body and gone with that and always worked towards that. That's not required. So if DOT submitted this to us without your concurrence, we would still approve it.
Okay, I'm sure you thought you answered my question, but, my wife probably could have done better than me, but she didn't, and she stuck with me. And I would be upset if she upgraded or downgraded now. So what I'm hearing you say is that if we don't change this, in fact, there is a financial implication because the state will be required to maintain a certain performance. And then on the other hand, you tell us it doesn't matter because you can do it anyway.
No, the financial.
What happens if we don't approve this? Do we lose money?
No.
No. Does the road get ripped up?
No.
Nope.
No. So what happens?
Well, absolutely. The problem is it does not meet the criteria.
I understand English. I've understood that the 4 times you've said it. What I have not heard yet, besides you're going to cram it down our throats, is what difference this makes.
The difference
doesn't change the maintenance, doesn't change the funding,
Nope.
doesn't change the level of the payment, so why should the people of Mitchell care?
Well, functional class is used for transportation planning, access management, things like that, and it's a requirement. So,
So if we don't change it, will you change it? Like, do you have authority to change it from a higher?
I have authority to approve what South Dakota DOT submits to me.
Basically, what the DOT, this whole entire part of this is I'm just facilitating. I come and work with the local entities and try to explain to them, based upon the guidelines and the criteria and what the current system is and how the system, what's changed in the system, and like having you guys' concurrence on it.
And we are just trying to, the reason we're doing this is, like I said before, is we are trying to clean things up and make it less onerous on whoever's jurisdiction it is. If this was a road that was your jurisdiction, you would be required to collect data and provide it to DOT for them to report. So if if it
Like
was.
number two.
If it was on your system, you know, the DOT would work with you and all that, but really what we're doing is we're fixing something that probably shouldn't have never been a principal arterial. And so we're looking at it. We were asked by our headquarters to look at all of these and verify that they should be prior to all these new performance measures coming into effect. And that's what we're doing.
Can we do piecemeal? Like, can we only agree to the ones that are the urban collectors and above, and then the ones that where you're downgrading where we would lose funding, say, okay, well, we're not going to agree to that because
But-
that's no good.
But you're not gonna.
You're not losing
you're not
funding.
losing any funding.
But you just said that if it's urban collector and
Oh,
up, it.
It is eligible.
And I
for
can
federal
address
aid.
that a little
And
bit.
there's an
Yeah.
urban collector that's going down that's not going to be any, that no longer will be federally funding eligible.
Currently, the last couple of years, the city of Mitchell's received $422,000, roughly $500 in federal aid funds. You can use those on any federal aid route, so that funding is not going to change. If you downgrade a route, you might not be able to use that money, that percentage of that money on that route if you downgrade it from below an urban collector. But you won't lose any funding. Your funding will remain the same at the 422,000 plus whatever adjustments are made through Congress.
Sure, so let's look at route number 9 on page 83, I don't know if you have that, but it's the one where we take East Douglas Avenue from South Main Street east to South First Street. And you're taking that from being an urban collector, which qualifies.
That's correct, and that
to
was
be
one of
an
the
urban
recommendations
local.
from Terry.
So what if, let's just assume that we would like to use some of that step money on this, we can't.
And that was at my request, because originally it was on there, and I wanted to add some routes, well, it's based off mileage. So I could only add so many miles of road that could be on there. So if you look on the map, we'll go through some of the areas that I added. Like number 11, which is West Ash, so going from the bypass, going out to the Pepsi plant. I wanted to add that as a functional class road, so that sometime I could use federal money to help fix, repair, or do improvements to that.
That has tons of truck traffic, so that's.
Yeah. I added South Edgerton from Haven Street all the way down to Norway.
We just built apartments
With
there.
those apartments there. I added Cabela Drive, the whole thing of Cabela Drive. I added South Capitol, where all those apartments are, and then Carl Road that connects back to the highway. And then probably the biggest one that we've had some talks with is number 1, Spruce Street. And that's probably the most important one. And it's a combination of, with us in the city, in the county, we want to really add number 1, Spruce Street to the list because we're working with the county and trying to rebuild at least that half mile of road by MTI.
Is that where the sidewalk comes in through?
That's where MTI has got a grant approved so they could build some bike trails around the complex, and we want to connect them to the corridor of Spruce Street and Burr Street.
So Terry, your percentages, you fell within that,
Yeah.
obviously, and you worked with these guys.
Yeah.
Since you've done this, have you reconsidered anything, or are you still comfortable with this plan?
I'm still comfortable with this plan. The thing, and they were talking about downgrading. Well, you know, we're looking at downgrading Havens and Burr, but we're not downgrading it down to a level where we're going to lose, where we're not going to be able to use federal funding on those. Douglas isn't main corridor. It acts as a local road. So that's why I felt that we could take Douglas off. And then there's another one, I thought it was 4th. Was it West 4th?
We kept it as West 4th.
West 4th was another one that I thought we could take off and go back down to a local road, just because it doesn't act as a main corridor, a main section through. And I felt that we could use some of our federal money on some of the roads that we didn't have highlighted. So.
Well, let's be clear, you're downgrading Sanborn and the 90 loop as well.
But there's still,
I understand,
yeah,
but they're downgraded. It's gonna be tough to tell the people of Mitchell that Sanborn is not a major road. You know,
And
when
Bill,
when people want a new stop sign, we do a traffic count. You fellas do a traffic count on these streets?
The last traffic count I have on that particular, on the 90 loop on Haven Street was 14,335, and that was in 2013.
So you've done traffic counts on all of these roads
Yes.
that were.
And traffic count doesn't necessitate it being a certain functional class. Like I said, 41st Street in Sioux Falls has the most traffic, basically any road in South Dakota, and we did the same thing on that one. But another thing, we do look at this for sure in urbanized areas after the census, about every 10 years, we do this. So every 10 years, we'll be looking at it again. I mean, we can change in between too. There's no requirement that you can't. It's just after the census we're kind of required to look at it. The last time we had a wholesale, had to look at everything was in, after the landmark transportation bill, ICE-T, and at that point, we had to look and do the entire state and reevaluate everything. And they may do that again in another 10 years, maybe every 20, 30 years, make you totally reevaluate from scratch, so.
Is our percentages unique, or is every city or size approximately the same percentage?
All these percentages are all based between urban and rural, and these were all brand-new percentages that just came out in, there's a brand-new functional classification guideline that just came out in 2013, and actually the Federal Highway Administration has beefed them up. So these percentages would be the same as what the percentages are in Sioux Falls, Aberdeen, Madison, Rapid City.
National averages. And they are guidelines. We are not strictly, have to stay exactly within those. We use them as guidelines. So we do have the latitude for unique situations in communities to go over or under according to that. That cues you to look at it a little closer if it's outside those guidelines.
Yeah, we do have some communities where the state highways takes up all the arterial systems, so, all communities need at least a minor arterial. So we have beefed up some of the percentages there.
And then if we don't change Sanborn, we would have to comply with performance measures, is that correct?
Well, DOT would, but.
No, Sanborn.
Oh, Sanborn
City.
is number 2.
No.
Yeah, because that went from a principal arterial other to a minor arterial.
But if they decide not to change
If they
Sanborn,
decide not to change
then
Sanborn,
we would
then
still
we
have
have
to
to
do
deal with performance measures.
Yes, and it would depend on what DOT chooses to do as far as submitting to us, accordance with your concurrence or not.
Okay.
Like I've worked with the other communities, like Rapid City, we changed St. Patrick Street from a principal arterial other, and we changed Fifth Street from a principal arterial other to a minor arterial. Just because, like I said earlier, they don't meet the requirements of the national highway system.
Yeah, so I think Larry's saying is we looked at all the communities in South Dakota and really focused on these urban ones because that's where we found that we had some that just didn't make sense. And
I have one in Madison. I just met with the city last Monday in Madison, which is pretty much similar traffic pattern as what's on Havens. And I explained to the city in Aberdeen we have a situation, Vermillion we have a situation.
Well, you answered my questions. I'm going to move to approve Resolution 3182.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 3182. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So noted. Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Resolution 3195, Union Negotiating Committee. You have-
Good evening, I'm Billy Kelly, Human Resource Director, and this is a resolution that we pass annually. If you approve, we hire Dennis Maloney, who is a specialized labor law attorney, and he comes down and handles, he's the lead negotiator for all of our negotiations. This year, we have added the city administrator to the negotiating team, and I think that that will be a good thing. I will be on the team, and we've asked Attorney Cook to serve as an advisory member of the team. And I guess the main thing that I'd like to let the council know is that, you know, I'm a pretty independent woman, always have been. I would not be requesting a labor law attorney if I didn't think that this was in the best interest of the city. I think Dennis Maloney has years and years and years of experience. He can answer a question in 15 minutes that would take us hours to research. And so I would recommend or ask for your approval of this resolution.
Is there some limit? 20 hours, 100 hours?
You know, that's a good question, because when they first started, first of all, we have 3 unions, and the fire union and the police union are extremely well established. We get together, we meet with them, it takes an hour. Each time Dennis comes down, it usually takes an average of 3 meetings, and we finalize things. We have the AFSCME union, which is really only 6 years old. And Attorney Maloney was involved in helping create the first AFSCME contract. It took 36 meetings. It was not a real smooth process. We're getting to the point now where it's becoming much more of a smooth process. We've ironed out a lot of misconceptions, a lot of union policies that were open to misinterpretation. And that's been a hard road. That's been through grievances. That's been through administrative law judges coming down and spending, you know, a day here. A lot of work has gone into getting it where it is now. So last year was a pretty long, drawn-out negotiation process. We had some scheduling issues, and we were working on some very, very significant policies. The main one was we were working very hard to get the 40-hour week put back into place and not have confusion over whether we paid overtime by the shift or by a 40-hour week. And of course, that was a long debate, because that's something that was very important to us. On the same side, it was very important to the unions. The year before that, we spent about 100 hours, Dave, and that, you know, Dennis charges $125 an hour, which I don't know if you can find any attorney that's going to charge us $125 an hour, or an architect or whatever. Phil Carlson always said that's, you know, it's the deal of the century. Dennis does this because he enjoys continuing to work. He likes sharing his experience. And I think that that's a very, very reasonable price that we're paying him. As I said, we don't call in specialists unless we need to, unless there's something. And I know that there's been times, and Linda can speak to this, with the police contract. There will be some real complex situations that come up. And Lyndon will come into my office and want to talk to Dennis Maloney, simply because union language can turn on one word. And it's very important that we have somebody who understands union language. And we appreciate Carl's help, of course, too. Did that answer your question, Dave? No. Okay. Some years it was $25,000.
There is no limit.
It's just what happens.
I would make it my personal business. I'd be, I would think that, well, here, let me show you.
I think it's okay. One year we budget so much, then you had to come back and ask for more, you know, to get it all done, but I mean, it's one of those things you have to get it done.
Right.
You can't just stop at 20 hours and say, oh, well, we're done now.
Yeah, but
And I wasn't there, but I will, I mean, I've been here for 3 years now. This is my 4th year. What I will say is that what we spend on Dennis is a fraction of what we would spend on a lawsuit, a fraction of what we would spend. And I do believe we've had several instances where we have come close and not had to go that route. I'm going to tell you this year, in January, his bill was $850, February $225, March $300. You know, that's less than that's 2.5 hours a month. But I have to tell you, last year, during our real significant debates, we spent $26,000. It's a lot of money. But years before that, I think there was time when you spent 36,000, I'm not sure. My goal would be to always, always keep it under 20 as much as I can. My real goal is 12 to 15,000. It's about $10,000 for union negotiations. It's about $1,000 a day. If he comes down, you know, that's travel, that's lodging, $125 an hour times 6, 7 hours a day. We try and get him to come for 2 days at a time. So it's about $2,000 every time Dennis comes to town to help us out. But it's 3 unions that we're dealing with.
And the one thing that we have done, Dave, is we finally got the 3 unions lined up where their contracts are coming due at the same time, which helps. And so if I remember right, we're going into 3-year contracts is what we're trying to.
That is so important, Jeff, yes, because before that, they could bring as many, AFSCME could bring as many topics to the table as they chose, and we could bring as many topics. Now, all 3 unions can bring 2 topics, and we discuss wages. And so we should be fairly limited. And frankly, I would say after the next 3 years, we'd like to get where we don't even negotiate every year. You know, our goal would be to where we go every 3 years. But it takes a long time to get that contract to where the city is in good shape. Any other questions?
I say this every time.
I know, Mel.
This comes up, and I will say it again, and I will be brief. I had confidence in Mr. Stiles and Mr. Papendick to carry this forward as attorneys for the city. I have confidence in Mr. Cook to carry this forward on behalf of the city. I cast no aspersions on Mr. Maloney, but I think this is a gigantic waste of city resources.
Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve resolution 3195.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve resolution 3195. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So noted. Motion carried. Resolution 3196, a resolution to authorize the filing of an application for a grant under Section 5311 of the Surface Transportation Assistance Act.
Good evening. This is,
Congratulations, by the way.
thank you.
Baby.
She is wonderful, and it's nice to be back, so we're excited to get back in the flow and right in grant season and budget time. This is for the Federal Surface Transportation Act that we apply every year with DOT with Palace Transit. This is for our management agreement with Sanborn County. Last year, we did our first year with Sanborn County managing their transit system, and their county commission approved that they would like us to continue to manage their contract. They will pay us $3,500 a month or $42,000 a year to operate their grant. And through this grant, we will receive 80% in administrative funds and 50% in operating funds.
Is this going to cover our costs?
Yes. And it also states in our contract that any costs above and beyond, they have to cover.
I would move approval of resolution number 3196.
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 3196. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Resolution 3197, fees and charges.
Why $100?
Same question. Where'd that come?
Most of our fees for special events are $100.
Is this a special event?
No.
It seems either really high or really low.
Is this an annual or
Yeah.
one time?
Annual.
Annual, $100 a year for that business.
I mean,
Yeah, and I guess I have that other question. It's called the sidewalk wine and outdoor dining permit. So is that any outdoor dining, even if it's on their property? So does the scoreboard have to have a permit for this?
Not on the sidewalk.
No.
Well,
Not there.
this doesn't say anything about sidewalk. It just says outdoor dining permit.
But it's wine and outdoor dining.
But can I serve wine and not have food outdoors?
What is the current license for the wine inside? what's the fee for that?
500?
To the state.
Well, that's, okay.
That's not a city.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not for wine on the sidewalk, and I don't care if people drink outdoors. I'm not for anything on the sidewalk, clothing racks, or products, or whatever. But it seems to me that if you're charging a fee, it should cover your costs. So if we're having somebody go in and inspect, you know, like the stings that they do, if we're having somebody undercover to make sure it's just wine and it's not Jack Daniels or whatever, then I think this fee is way too low. But if we're just going to allow them permission to do something the city of Mitchell has said they have permission to do, I think this is way too high. They're already, I mean, it's not like I don't have a license to serve wine already.
Right.
I guess I would like to amend this down to $25. Covers our processing.
Well, that's a good question. Do we have a cost to process these and maintain them?
Other than staff time to, you know, take the application and so on, because I don't think the public safety's time will be any different than what they're doing currently.
Will they have to have a sticker in their window or anything that shows their licensing of the?
I mean, for example, is somebody going to check that they got 50% of the receipts from food?
Only for challenge, and then we'd ask for like an audit type thing or something from their bookkeeper. We've done that before. But essentially what they're doing is they're gaining commercial property by use of city sidewalk. That's what they're paying for. They're gaining square footage that the citizens own to conduct their business. And the state law is pretty specific.
isn't enough.
Yeah. The state law is specific. They can do it. It's got to be directly in front of their property on the sidewalk is what it applies to. And very few businesses can do this. This is one of them.
You know, again, I'm not for this, but I do think that when the citizens say they want something, and I'm not casting aspersions on anybody here, but then to have a fee that in effect discourages people from doing what people say they want, I don't think it's proper.
I don't have a problem with that.
It's $25 cover our costs. Well, I'm going to move to formally amend then Resolution 3197 to strike the 100 and insert $25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second in favor of the Resolution 3197, amending the fee from $100 to $25. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Do we need to address Steve's questions about the title of the?
It says and, Carl, are you okay with that? That it's both the sidewalk and outdoor dining areas?
So so in answer to his question, if they're
Wine.
serving outdoor, if it's outdoor dining, since it says sidewalk wine and outdoor dining, does that and mean that those are together, or is it saying it's sidewalk wine and so there? Well, that's the question.
Because we have public places that are serving outdoor food.
Right,
That
that
don't have this permit.
And that aren't necessarily.
if you want to strike the. Yeah. Outside is outside.
Outside is outside.
Who said anything about sidewalk?
Why not say sidewalk wine?
Yeah, if you'll leave it at that, that'd be fine.
Because isn't that what we're really addressing
Sure.
here?
Yeah,
Or-
I expect that's how it'd be administered.
Or you could add another sidewalk. Sidewalk wine and sidewalk outdoor dining, because what the scoreboard does is not sidewalk dining.
And the other places I'm thinking of aren't sidewalk dining either, but they're outside dining.
But Cafe Teresa has outdoor dining. Does she need, if she decides not to serve wine, does she need to have this have take
Yes.
this?
I would say yes.
That
I would say
was,
right now it's implied sidewalk.
Sidewalk.
Well, I will move to amend the form by adding after the "and" another sidewalk, so it's clear we're talking about sidewalk, outdoor dining, and not just outdoor dining.
I'll second.
Note that change then, as far as the wording of the outdoor dining. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Resolution 3198, cancel outstanding checks.
Move to approve resolution 3198.
Second.
can we talk about this just a minute? So these checks are checks that just didn't get cashed? Is that what these are? I'm thinking, let's give some of these kids that need their 25 bucks, let's give them a call. I can call them right now. How come we have, can you give me a little background on that?
Well, if
Because
we
it-
cancel, we are giving them their money back.
Oh,
No,
okay.
we're canceling them because they have not been presented for payment.
Oh, I see.
And it costs us a minimum of $25 to do a stop payment charge. So
So,
typically, we do
What if they
not,
lost the check? I mean, is that?
it's the same thing. We look on that as they got it, or if it didn't get delivered by the mail, once it leaves us, typically what happens is if we have a check that's, $250, and they say they lost the check, we'll put a stop payment on it, less the amount of the stop service for the stop payment charge.
Maybe they were so proud to get a check from the city of Mitchell, they
They
framed
framed
it.
it. There you go.
For $1.80.
Yeah.
I think it's,
What are these checks for, do we know? Were they for service? I mean, $1.80 does leap out at you.
I believe that one was a refund on utilities. Like they finaled out, and we owed them $1.80.
Did you get a second on the motion?
I believe we have a motion and a second. Have a motion and a second on resolution 3198. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Resolution 3199, that there is no feasible and prudent alternative to the proposal to raise the property located at 205 North Duff, which property is on the National Register of Historic Places.
You probably noticed that 3199 and 3200 are in the alternative. So if you adopt one, you wouldn't adopt the other, would exclude the other.
Well, I think we had a very good hearing, and I guess I would remind the council that we are on the internet, and so I wouldn't be surprised if our comments show up in a trial somewhere. The only thing that we really can consider is the condition of the house. Whether or not the property itself is a nuisance is beside the point. And of course, we have to consider whether there's any feasible or prudent alternative. And I think it's important to go over some of the testimony that was given. We had Mr. Jerza come up and talk about his experience in Atlanta with historic properties and his suggestion that it would be $350,000 to $400,000 to renovate this property at 205 North Duff. He indicated that it could go higher because inside the building, nothing had been done. And I'm not referring now to the property and the other things inside the building, other than to say, Mr. Jerza suggested that you would have to open up a wall and see what had been done to the wiring or what had been done to the wooden studs or the insulation and so forth and so on to have a better indication of what was going on. Our building inspector indicated that he was not able to give us a full opinion because the items inside the house had not been moved. So it's clear that no restoration had gone on inside the house other than the one utility box for purposes of running power tools. We had some testimony from the neighbors, and it was interesting testimony. Most of it, frankly, was irrelevant, except for the fact that pictures showed open holes in the roofing area, and there was a picture where the tarpaulin was pulled away, and you could see the chalk stone. Nothing had been done in that particular area. I have no doubt that the Larsons love their home. I have no doubt that they have done the best that they can. The difficulty is in Mrs. Larson's own testimony. Mr. Taylor, her lawyer, asked if you could find a contractor who was competent to do the chalk stone and who was affordable and who would do it on your timetable, would you hire that individual? And her answer was, well, maybe for some of it, but I would want to continue to do some of the work myself. She indicated in her testimony that chalk stone was not relatively available in Mitchell, that she couldn't find a contractor that was competent in chalk stone. And I have no doubt she knows more about chalk stone now than she did 12 years ago. But the fact of the matter is, despite their desire and love for the home, Mr. and Mrs. Larson do not have the skill to restore it themselves. They're not electricians, they're not plumbers, they're not carpenters. They know more about masonry than they did before, but they're not masons. And in 12 years, there has not been appreciable progress on the building. The other thing Steve and I were talking about in kind of a sidebar was when the exhibit was handed out by Mr. Taylor in terms of what Mr. and Mrs. Larson were doing on the building and their day-to-day schedule. Many times it said worked on it for an hour. Many times it said a caregiving or a holiday or too hot or whatever. So the question is it feasible for them to proceed with a plan of restoring the home themselves? They've had 12 years. I felt bad about asking, but their ages are 57 and 58. Mrs. Larson indicated she's in excellent health, and I'm sure she is. But as we all know, health is a fragile thing. I had a friend of mine come out of a movie, break his leg. He was disabled for 8 months. So are they skilled enough to do it? I think the answer is no. Is there time enough to do it? I think the answer is no. Is there money enough to do it? Susan Sharks asked the question, what did you do with the fire insurance? And there was no fire insurance. So the question then becomes, is it feasible? Their own testimony indicated they can't find a contractor, at least one to their satisfaction. Their own exhibits indicate they don't have the time to do this sufficiently. Visual progress indicates there hasn't been much in 12 years. So the answer is no. There is no feasible alternative. Is it then prudent for us to grant an extension of time? I think if this were 2004 instead of 2014, I think you would argue that there wasn't enough time. It's been 12 years. I live in an older home. It's got curved walls. It's got oak woodwork. It's got hidden doors. So I understand the allure of an older home. I also understand the expense of an older home. It seems to me there is nothing to do except to approve Resolution 3199, and I will make that motion.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 3199. Is there further discussion?
Well, I agree with what Mel just said, with one exception, and that is that the neighbor's testimony was irrelevant. I think that is extremely relevant because their property is being directly affected by the condition of this property. And I tried to put that property in my neighborhood, and I know for a fact that my neighbors would be so upset because of the ripple effect that has when you have a property where it's falling apart and it's not being cared for. I drove by it, I had my husband and I, we drove by it again today, just to take one more look at it, because I want the Larsons to know that none of us have taken this lightly in any way. I know that we have given this a great deal of thought, because, this is just, this is an important decision that we're being asked to make. But there were several glaring things that jumped out at me that night, and among them, along with many of the things that Mr. Olson said, was that this does have a very direct effect on the neighbors. And, I had asked Mr. London to come up and talk to us about what the process is, and one of the things that Steve and I had talked about at one point was, occasionally we'll have the nuisance enforcer give the warnings, and then if it's not cleaned up, we'll come and clean it up and we'll bill you for this. But it seems to me like if we did that, it would be an ongoing expense that I'm not sure that the Larsons, I don't, know if they would be willing to or be able to continue to pay for someone to go in and clean that, what is there, and make it so that it is a property that is going to not bring down the other properties in the neighborhood. The fact that, this isn't a primary residence, I think that at least gave me a piece of some comfort, because I know that we're not taking the primary residence from the Larsons. And so there were, a number of issues that I have had, that I've given a lot of thought to. And I have to agree that this is probably at this point our best option.
I think we also, as the city, we have a due process, and based on the notes starting in, or it was 2008, maybe earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it's a shotgun effort. It's been a time-consuming, methodical process. For you guys, I'm new to get to this point. I think it's been fair.
Well, and Susan and I talked, and I agonized over this, and from the testimony, to me, a couple things stood out, and actually they convinced me of a couple of things. The building is probably fairly solid. From one of the pictures from the neighbors, at least the roofing portion looked like it had been redone, but not over some of the windows and some of the other areas where it obviously looked like it could leak. My question that I kept asking is, why not make the house livable so that then you could restore it instead of leaving it and it's my opinion, a non-livable state, and work on the outside restoration? The other thing that came up, and the attorney pointed out that the question of whether it's feasible. And so I looked up in Webster's, okay, what are the potential meanings of feasible? And what stood out is the words likely to occur. So then I looked up the word likely. And likely has a part in it that can be time dependent or meaning of time. And I just don't see, looking at that, where the comment that this was 2004 and we were trying to figure out a way to save a building that I think is architecturally, structurally significant, that likely might still pertain, but I can't see it 12 years later.
Any further discussion?
Mayor, I conferred with Councilor Cook, and given the fact I wasn't here for the testimony, I was out of town, I will be abstaining.
We have a motion and a second on Resolution 3199. I think due to the nature of this, we will have a roll call vote.
Darrington?
Aye.
Dosher?
This is the hardest vote I've probably made. I got on the
Jerks?
I agree. Aye.
Rice?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Smith?
Abstain.
Allen?
Aye.
And Truniff.
Aye.
Motion carried. Do we need to take any action on resolution 30?
I would move that we do not pass resolution 3200.
Second.
Motion second to not pass resolution 3200. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. First reading of ordinance 2478, supplemental appropriations.
I have a question. Why do we have to supplement city administrator? Wasn't that included in the budget?
No.
Not from
No,
a year ago.
Not from a year ago?
No.
No.
Okay.
This is like the 6 month.
And yes, the
Yeah.
the salary and benefit portions are for 6 months.
Kind of motion is what they desire, and this is carrying that into action.
Okay. Oh, it just seemed like so long ago we talked about the city administrator. I'm sure it was
We
in the
discussed
budget.
about waiting for budget time and doing it in 2015, and then I think Danny was on council at that time when he took a little vacation. That he said he wanted to move the process forward quickly, got support for him.
I'll move to place ordinance 2478 on first reading.
Second.
A motion second to place ordinance 2478 on first reading. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consider approval, amend City of Mitchell campground lease.
I think it's, I don't know if, yeah, I'll let Dusty talk about it.
Yeah, basically, I just wanted to clean up some of the language in the campground lease. Just, you know, why I didn't catch it earlier, I'm not 100% sure. But section 12, provision C4 reads, standard fire, extended coverage insurance on the buildings, picnic shelters, property, you know, blah, blah, blah. Essentially, as the owners of the building, the city is currently carrying that coverage. I said the lease would actually call for dual coverage on that, which, you know, we're not going to collect. Right, we would not collect twice. So I just really wanted to clean that part of the lease up.
I've already prepared that, excluding that.
I put the current contract in there
Put the
so
current contract in.
you could see how it was worded.
Dusty, this is not relevant, it's relevant. As long as you're up there, we were having a little conversation before the meeting. Why 5 years? Why a 5-year lease? Why not something shorter?
That was, you know, when we put this lease together.
Past practice.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I talked to Chamberlain, American Creek, and, you know, other municipalities that have done something similar to this, and they've gone on a 5-year basis.
What does the state do when they lease some of those? State?
Yeah, I was going to say it was, because I believe American Creek was state.
They lease them, or do they just have operator agreements?
They leased,
They actually do?
yes.
Dusty, why are we doing this now versus at the end of the lease?
Billy knows that.
Well, basically, the end would be another 2.5 years. Like I said, I just noticed it in there, you know, was reviewing it. Right.
Yeah, there was an issue, I don't recall what it was, came up here a month or so ago regarding the payment of some hail damage, I believe, wasn't it?
Right, well, our adjusters said that, basically ruled that there was no call for that, so, you know, that's sort of what brought this to our attention, is like, you know, I got to reading through here, and
So is our guy carrying fire insurance now?
currently,
And we do too.
right, and we do too, so, I said that, you know, and that'd be something when we renegotiate, we would renegotiate as a part of the contract or the lease. So, just wanted to clean that out.
I'll move to approve the amendment to the Mitchell campground lease.
Have a motion second to approve the amended campground lease. Any further discussion?
Yeah, question, and maybe it goes to budget time. When we did the Sports Authority item, we talked about potentially putting $1 per night in the campground into the lease. Is that an option we can look at without waiting till the end of the 2.5 years?
You'd have to take it out of city revenue currently, I think we discussed that.
Yeah, we are taking out city revenue, but I think Steve is asking when can we change it? I mean, we gotta wait for the lease to be up, or can we get this extra dollar collected now, or?
Well, I think we would have to renegotiate the lease. Right.
Right.
Well, we'll talk to him, I guess, in consideration of the,
Yeah, obviously, this year is out, but
Right.
maybe you could
We
broach
can have
that.
our understanding, but can we get it so it's?
Sure. Well, yeah, we can have that conversation. Yeah, we can amend this again with, that provision.
I guess if you're gonna negotiate, we're gonna give him something, we should maybe ask for something in return at the
Right.
time. of doing something.
Well,
And
we're
maybe-
not giving him anything, we're asking for an extra buck.
Oh, I know, but I mean, we're giving him something with this,
Right, with the insurance.
amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
We're asking for another buck, but
He won't pay it.
No, he theoretically could increase $1 for that money as an option, instead of increasing it
Right.
to, the sport authority. So when you increase it, you actually are taking, not really $1 from him, but you're taking away his possible increase that he might, put in place.
Would he collect $1 from the city, is what we're asking?
Correct.
Have a meeting with him and come back
And
and
can
council
we-
what he says.
Sure.
That's a good.
Since we're talking about the lease.
Right,
Yeah.
we get started in 2015 is when I'd like to, not 2017, because obviously we're taking out the general fund, I don't know what that number was, but, if it's $5,000, $10,000 or whatever, it's something that's coming out of the general fund, to pay for $1, because we vowed to pay $1 to the sports authority from here on out.
So that's nothing to do with this motion.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the amended campground lease. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consider approval of the awarding of a contract from competitive sealed proposals to Cunningham Recreation for playground equipment for Pioneer Park in the amount of $34,999.92.
I try and keep these grouped together, so I only come up here once. Oh, thanks, Cindy. This is basically like we've done our other playgrounds the last 3 years or so. There's a provision in the bidding laws that, particularly with playgrounds, because every vendor has, it's extremely hard to write specs and get a variety of different proposals. We request competitive sealed proposals. Essentially, it's based on, we give them a dollar figure, give us your best playground for that dollar figure. We got, I believe, 6 proposals. We had a review committee go through, score those on a variety. Like I said, I put the playground review, the scoring criteria in there, and the proposal tabulation. And
Why 92 cents?
that's, like I said, and if you look, on their prices, some more right at the 35, as low as 34,752. But, it boils down to, the review number. And, I think that's just what he put.
As a former teacher of 5-year-olds, I am all about a visual. You don't happen to have a picture of this, do you?
I do in my office.
Do you? I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
I think it looks like it's really appropriate for Pioneer Park. It kind of has a western.
Right, and with the proposals that we requested, I said I would, like your best foot forward on the traditional playground equipment, or with being Pioneer in that area, it already has the stagecoach and what have you down there, so ask for a western theme as well.
Well, and this is very expensive, but I have to give it to Dusty and the Park and Rec Board to keep our local parks up to date, so then the neighborhood children have a fun, nice place, safe place to play. And our parks do get used, and I know you can't do them all at once, but since Dusty's been here, I know he's been slowly improving, and that includes I bring this up periodically, but at Cadwell Park, that equipment out there gets a lot of use because there's families there all the time.
Yep.
And even at the campground, obviously, we've improved that since you've been here. So I think the families in Mitchell really appreciate the fact that we are spending and reinvesting into our youth, into our neighborhood parks.
I know Kibbe Park gets a lot. being used a lot more than it ever has before, since you put all the new equipment in, so.
And that being
People are all the
said,
time.
we may want to find a way to build a indoor park, so that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea.
We could have someplace for the kids.
Yeah, good ask him because he's got plans.
I just think it's unfortunate that we spend all this money and these places get used for these few little sweet weeks of our year, and then for 9 months, our kids sit inside.
Susan, I've lived across the street from a park for 27 years, and I've seen kids playing every month of the year.
Have you?
Yeah.
That's great news, great to hear. Even
Oh, the blizzards usually have people out there swinging and jumping up.
Into the snow.
do we?
I cannot believe we have a motion yet.
Move to approve. Move to approve. I can't believe we're.
Award the contract.
Equipment.
Second.
We have a motion to award the contract for the playground equipment to Cunningham Recreation. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Consider approval of change order number 1 to Muller Lumber for Corn Palace renovations and additions, city project number 2013-12, for crow's nest revisions in the amount of $3,155 for an adjusted contract amount of $3,624,501.
This is our first change order for the Corn Palace project, and once we got into starting to do demo, we realized that where the Daktronics video equipment is in the way of construction. So we need to unhook all the equipment and move it into an area that'll be safe, that we'll be able to still use while we're under construction. 2 locations are the light room, which has really no ventilation, and when the light projectors are going during shows, it's really hot in there and it would overheat the video equipment. So the best scenario was to extend the north crow's nest all the way to the corner of, we'd be extending it another 12 feet. So we'd be going past those windows up to the corner of the arena to where it goes back and jets back again. We'd extend it for about 12.5 feet, and we figured we'd have room for at least 3 or 4 monitors in order to put that Daktronics and the audio equipment up there. The Daktronics people and the audio people felt it was a great location to put the equipment because you're out in the arena and you could hear what the audio sounds like. Whereas if you're in the light room or even in the existing space where it's at now, you can't really hear how the audio sounds. So change order 1 would be for Muller Lumber to extend the crow's nest to the end of that corner, so then we could move the equipment out into that space. We did not, you'll see right below it, 2 different quotes for Daktronics and Mid-States Audio. We did not add them to the change order because they are not subs, they're different agreements, but they're all kind of connected to the same scope. The only other thing that came up today at 5 was we're going to have to add some more wiring, and it's going to amount to about $450 additional for some wiring, for some circuits that wasn't thought about while we were going through this process. They want to start unhooking the equipment next week so we could start demoing up in the 3rd floor, so that's why we kind of pushed this through as fast as we could. We are going to have to unhook the equipment next week, and we'll have to move it probably into that light room. We won't rehook it up, but Muller has told us that the crow's nest will be built before Corn Palace Week, so we could have all that equipment back online for Corn Palace Week. If we would keep it in that open area, we'd have to move it back and forth for basketball season and all that kind of stuff. And this would be a better space for this equipment from here on going on.
Why didn't our architect figure this out, Terry?
I think this was more of probably more of a Corn Palace coordination management thing, not so much the building of the, renovations. I don't think they thought about where is that equipment going to go during the construction. And at the time, it was only going to go on for 3 months until Corn Palace Week was here, and then that equipment could go back on. I don't even think it was looked at from what I've found out.
Motion to approve the change order.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve change order number 1 to Mueller Lumber. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Corn Palace renovation and addition city project number 2013-12 is not part of the contract. A quote from Daktronics for control room renovations in the amount of $5,780, and a quote from Midstate Audio and Video to relocate head and end to projection room to the amount of $3,634.
Now, one quick thing on this, I was planning on taking this out of the Corn Palace budget that we have set aside. If you don't want me to take it out of there, then I'll have to reappropriate money into something else. But that's where I was planning on taking this out, but I wanted to let you guys know so we're all on the same page.
Out of the Corn Palace.
Or the Corn Palace project, budget.
So this is out of the contingency?
Or just out of the 2014 regular Corn Palace budget?
This would be out of our renovation budget. Yeah,
So the contingency.
yeah, yeah.
Refresh my memory, how much do we have on that?
And there's money elsewhere for us to do that?
$369,000, I believe.
There's money in that fund.
But you said if you don't want me to.
Then I would have to find a Corn Palace operational budget that we would have to throw money into.
And is there money to throw into it, or were you?
We'd have to grab it from general fund.
I just didn't know if you had a little slush fund that you.
I wish I did.
Wrong department.
Yeah. Darn, I love a slush fund.
Yes, keep it from the contingency.
Okay. So you said use the contingency or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Move to approve the additions out of the contingency fund.
Motion second to use the monies for the renovations out of the contingency fund. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
There it is.
Short agenda, yeah.
You got it.